Chapter 443. You're courting death. This guy, is he crazy? Seeing the purple-robed young man rushing toward the powerful attacks alone, the freshmen were shocked and could not help but doubt their attacks. Could it be that the gap between the purple-robed young man and them was so big? With such a shock in their hearts, the attacks in their hands unconsciously weakened a little. Oh no! Noticing this, Shangwan Yunqi and the others' faces changed dramatically. They hurriedly shouted, "Don't be afraid. This guy is alone, and there are thousands of us. Even if each of us spits, we can drown him." Rumble. However, Shangwan Yunqi and the others were strong enough to react quickly. The others were shocked, and the attacks in their hands, and even the formation they were controlling were thrown into disarray. The originally orderly and crisscrossed attacks suddenly became chaotic. Many of the attacks scattered and bombarded the purple-robed young man. Sigh. Damn it, that guy really got away with it. Shangwan Yunqi and the others gritted their teeth and looked at each other. They no longer hesitated and accelerated the speed of their attacks. Originally, they wanted to use the advantage of numbers to continuously wear down the purple-robed young man's defense with the formation and Saint Aura attacks, and finally burst out with the fiercest attack to defeat the purple-robed young man. However, they did not expect that the purple-robed young man's fearless attacks would frighten the others and weaken their attacks. The originally orderly attacks also became disorderly. In this way, it would be much easier for the purple-robed young man to break through their attacks. What Shangwan Yunqi and the others thought of, the purple-robed young man naturally thought of as well. Huh! With a clear cry, the purple-robed young man waved his hands. A cold light suddenly appeared, and a sharp aura immediately tore the first round of attacks that rushed toward him. Chila! Like a piece of cloth being torn, the attacks did not even stop for a breath's time. The purple-robed young man's figure had already penetrated the attacks and suddenly rushed toward the formation in the sky that enveloped them. In order to ensure that the purple-robed young man and the others would not be able to break out and be trapped in a battle of attrition, Shangwan Yunqi and the others had set up several formations. Oh no, we can't let him break out. Seeing that the purple-robed young man was about to touch the array, Shangwan Yunqi and the others' faces changed drastically. They hastily flew towards the purple-robed young man. If the purple-robed youth were to break the formation, all their previous efforts would have been in vain. Moreover, as the purple-robed young man approached the formation, the ominous premonition in their hearts grew even more intense. Ha ha ha! With just the likes of you, you want to play these tricks? The purple-robed young man didn't slow down. He lowered his head and swept his gaze over Shangwan Yunqi and the others. He sneered, "Today, let us teach you that you must treat your senior brothers with respect." As soon as he finished speaking, the purple-robed young man lightly kicked his legs. Swoosh! Swoosh! Several fierce gusts of wind swept out and shot toward Shangwan Yunqi and the others. The gusts of wind whistled through the air, carrying a sharp aura. They were extremely fast, and before Shangwan Yunqi and the others had time to dodge, they felt a sharp pain in their chests, and a huge force came out of their bodies. Bang bang! In the crisp sound, Shangwan Yunqi and the others' bodies suddenly trembled. Their forward momentum was abruptly stopped by the fierce gusts of wind. Looking up, Shangwan Yunqi and the others' faces were filled with horror. They saw that the purple-robed young man's hands had already touched the light screen of the array. No! Quick! Quick! Quickly increase the strength of the array. In the hoarse roar, Shangwan Yunqi and the others' faces changed drastically. In an instant, some of the freshmen hurriedly increased the power of the array. However, before the array could change, many fine cracks gradually appeared on the light screen in the air. Crack! Crack! Along with the crisp sound, the cracks quietly expanded and spread out. Gulp! Seeing this scene, Shangwan Yunqi, Muyi, and the others couldn't help but turn pale as they swallowed mouthfuls of saliva. A bitter smile appeared on their faces. Shangwan Yunqi and the others were extremely depressed. They had spent so much energy to set up such a trap. They didn't expect that the purple-robed young man and the others would still be able to break free. Bang, bang, bang. The light screen shattered, and the array was also broken. In an instant, the power of the backlash exploded. The freshmen who were controlling the array trembled and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. In order to ensure that the purple-robed young man and the others couldn't break free, a total of more than 500 freshmen were responsible for operating the array. However, they had underestimated the purple-robed young man. Under this attack, more than 500 freshmen had lost their fighting strength. Is the strength of a peak saint really so terrifying? More than 500 people, together with the array, still can't stop him. Thinking of this, Shangwan Yunshi and the others couldn't help but smile bitterly. They had already done what they could, but the difference in strength was too great. This is heaven's will to kill us. It's not the fault of fighting. Shangwan Yunshi sighed. Forget it. After all, they have cultivated for more than 10 years than us, and their talent is not inferior to ours. I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. Hearing this, Muyi and Dao Feiyong sighed silently. In their hearts, they had no thoughts of resisting. The difference in strength was too great, and it was futile. When they looked up, the light screen had completely shattered and scattered like a mirror. Shangwan Yunshi, Muyi, and Dao Feiyong were surprised to find that there were more than 50 seniors outside the array. Their auras were powerful, and they floated in the air, coldly looking at them. Among them, more than 10 people were still in the position of attacking. Spiritual energy surged around them. SSS, this array, they broke it together. Frowning, Shangwan Yunshi, Muyi, and Dao Feiyong quickly landed and stood with the other freshmen, staring at the figures in the air. TSK Tisk. The purple-robed young man clapped his hands and coldly glanced at the crowd. He laughed out loud. We've already used your tricks. I thought you could gather more people, but I didn't expect you to only have so few. Sigh, there's still a few thousand people. We still need to slowly search for them. It's too troublesome. Don't talk nonsense. Let's beat them down first. Without waiting for the purple-robed young man to finish speaking, another person suddenly flashed to the purple-robed young man's side. His eyes narrowed and flashed with a cold light like a poisonous snake. In that case, let's begin. The purple-robed young man's lips curled up slightly, and his voice gradually became cold. Then let's begin. Senior brother's counterattack. Array. Activate. As soon as he finished speaking, the dozens of figures in the air suddenly moved their hands. Chapter 444. Swoosh. Almost at the same time as the invisible wave rippled out, a red barrier that looked like a burning flame suddenly enveloped the entire area. The scorching heat suddenly fell, roasting Shangwan Yunshi and the others. The strong saint aura continued to press down on everyone's nerves. For a moment, whether it was the ordinary freshman, Shangwan Yunshi, Muyi, Dao, Feiyong, or the others, all felt despair. The purple-robed young man alone was enough to give them a headache. They did not expect that they would have a backup plan. Not only did they set up an array, but they also had more than 50 powerhouses. If they fought like this, wouldn't they lose without a doubt? The more they thought about it, the more their fighting spirit collapsed. Just a bunch of trash. However, when he saw everyone's expression, the sturdy man beside the purple-robed young man sneered and mocked. If I knew that these ants were so useless that they didn't even dare to resist, I wouldn't have come here. It would have been more interesting to accompany Tai Yu and his brother to hunt down the freshmen and taste their fear. Speaking of this, the sturdy man could not help but laugh evilly. If you hadn't come, what would have happened if they had more people? The purple-robed young man said indifferently, when a lion hunts a rabbit, it must use all its strength. Tong Wuan, don't underestimate your opponents. So what if I underestimate these guys? The sturdy man called Tong Wuan curled his lips. When he spoke of Shangwan Yunshi and the others, he was still full of disdain. However, Tong Wuan did not know that after he finished speaking, the thousands of freshmen in the field were enraged. They suddenly raised their heads and looked at him with eyes full of anger. Although these freshmen were not outstanding among the freshmen and had even doubted their own talents, they were still from their respective regions. However, They were all geniuses of their respective regions, after all. They had their own dignity. It did not matter if their points were stolen. At most, they could earn them after entering Cebu Gakuen. However, if they were humiliated, they could not accept it. Bastard. Shangguan Yunqi, Dao Feiyang, and Muyi were so angry that they gritted their teeth and stared fiercely at Tong Wuan. If looks could kill, Tong Wuan would have died countless times already. Brothers, we might lose today's battle. Every one of us will get hurt. Suddenly, Shangguan Yunqi took a step forward and shouted, "But today, even if I'm seriously injured and unconscious, even if my points are stolen, I'll still fight. We also need to protect our dignity. Protect the dignity of our new life. Fight, 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 kill." In an instant, an intense aura burst forth from the bodies of the new students like a volcanic eruption. That aura was so powerful that even the purple-robed youth revealed a surprised expression. Hee, child's play. Tong Wuan sneered, his heart still filled with disdain for Shangguan Yunqi and the others. "Brothers, let's go." Shangguan Yunqi shouted, and a golden spear appeared in his right hand. The next moment, a domineering saint's aura surged, causing the entire space to tremble. Supreme sacred artifact? The purple-robed young man, Tong Wuan, and the others were surprised when they sensed the saint's aura. They looked down and their expressions changed. They stared at Shangguan Yunqi. A supreme sacred artifact was something that even the great sage coveted. What they were using was only a 10,000 inscription sacred artifact, which was still far from a supreme sacred artifact. Therefore, when they saw Shangguan Yunqi take out a supreme sacred artifact, they were shocked and could not help but gulp. But soon after, they sighed again. After all, this was Cebu Gakuen's internal hunting war. They could not kill or snatch other people's things. Hee. So what if you have a supreme sacred artifact? Tong Wuan sneered and waved his right hand. In the sky, dozens of figures rushed toward Shangguan Yunqi and the others. Even the weakest of the 40-plus cultivators were at the middle stage of the Saint Realm. There was no lack of late-stage Saint Realm experts. They charged down together and summoned their respective Saint artifacts and domains. That kind of power was extremely oppressive. Even Shangguan Yunqi, who had a supreme sacred artifact, could not help but turn pale. Brothers, let these ants see the consequences of a new student going against a senior. As your senior brothers, we have a right to teach you how to face your senior brothers. With a hideous laugh, Tong Wuan summoned a giant sword. He raised his hands and suddenly rushed toward Shangguan Yunqi. In his opinion, Shangguan Yunqi was only a middle saint, but he was a later saint and was about to become a peak saint. Even if Shangguan Yunqi had a supreme sacred artifact, he did not think that Shangguan Yunqi could compete with him. Brothers, today's points can be lost. Don't lose people. Shangguan Yunqi, Muyi, and Dao Feiyang all burst into action at the same time. Facing the onslaught of attacks that filled the sky, they resolutely rushed forward. Let these seniors see that us freshmen aren't pushovers that anyone can bully. Kill, kill, kill. In an instant, the anger in the hearts of all the new students was ignited. Without any hesitation, no one held back. They all erupted with their strongest strength, summoning their saint artifacts and domains. Like hungry wolves, they pounced forward. Seeing this scene, the purple-robed youth who was still in the air could not help but frown slightly. He did not know why, but he felt that something bad was going to happen. He carefully looked at the crowd and did not find any special experts hiding among them. Only then did the purple-robed youth let out a sigh of relief. After all, they are new students. Only a few of them have reached the Middle Saint Realm. They should not be a match for us. Nodding slightly, the purple-robed youth waved his right hand lightly. The next moment, more than 40 people under him who could not wait any longer rushed forward as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Since they were able to form a team, there was also a rule of distribution. Whoever contributed more and defeated more people would be able to get more points. Therefore, when they saw that a battle was about to break out, they were extremely excited. In their opinion, no matter how many new students there were, they would not be a match for them. This was a great opportunity for them to gain points, so they naturally did not want to miss it. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, as the hands of the new students and the old students collided, a clear and melodious sound instantly rippled out, rising and falling in succession, and resounded without stopping. A fierce battle was on the verge of breaking out. Even the strongest people, such as Tong Wuan and Shangguan Yunqi, were entangled in a fight. However, the people who were fighting desperately did not notice that not far away, at the edge of the array, 5 figures were lurking and hiding, quietly watching the people who were fighting. These 5 people were Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu, and the others who were prepared to benefit from the fight between the snipe and the clam. Chapter 445. The battle scene of thousands of people was extremely shocking. Even Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu, and the others were stunned. If it weren't for the fact that this space was quite sturdy, the battle between so many saints was enough to shatter the void. However, at this moment, their attacks could only cause the space to tremble, but they couldn't even shatter the void. Only the battle between Shangguan Yunqi and Tong Wuan could shatter the void with a raise of their hands, bursting out with extremely strong power. As the battle continued, the surrounding disciples, regardless of whether they were seniors or freshmen, no longer dared to stay beside Shangguan Yunqi and Tong Wuan. They allowed the 2 of them to shift the battlefield. It had to be said that the strength of the seniors was indeed much stronger than the freshmen. Even though they were few in number, almost every senior had to fight against 60 to 70 freshmen. In this way, even if they had an overwhelming advantage in terms of cultivation, it would be difficult for them to defeat the freshmen in a short period of time. Dao Feiyang and Muyi were not much weaker than Shangguan Yunqi. They each held back 5 to 6 seniors, sharing the pressure of the other freshmen. In the sharp saber light and the rich saint aura, the situation gradually stabilized. However, the advantage in terms of cultivation level could not be eliminated. No matter how many freshmen there were, their cultivation level was still their shortcoming. As time went by, the power they could use became weaker and weaker. On the contrary, the seniors became braver and braver as they fought. For a time, many of the Saint Realm freshmen felt exhausted and couldn't help but feel despair. In the sky, the purple-robed youth saw this scene and frowned. When he turned his head to look at the battle between Shangguan Yunqi and Tong Wuan, the corners of the purple-robed youth's mouth suddenly twitched. He cursed in a low voice, "This damn Tong Wuan," he even called others trash. After so long, he still hasn't taken him down. He's actually at a disadvantage. The purple-robed youth's expression became colder and colder as he stared at the battle between Shangguan Yunqi and Tong Wuan. To shoot a man, shoot the horse first. To capture the bandits, capture the leader first. In this battle, the ones who could really play a decisive role were him and Tong Wuan, as well as Shangguan Yunqi, Muyi, and Dao Feiyang. Originally, the purple-robed youth thought that in a one-on-one battle, Tong Wuan could defeat Shangguan Yunqi in a dozen moves. However, he did not expect Shangguan Yunqi to possess a supreme sacred artifact. That long spear was extremely sharp. Every time it swept out, it would bring about a powerful saintly might. Even Tong Wuan did not dare to casually receive it. He had to face its sharpness. After exchanging more than 100 moves, Shangguan Yunqi's strength finally weakened. Only then did Tong Wuan stabilize the situation and gradually turn from defense to offense. In this way, Tong Wuan instantly felt much more comfortable, but he was furious in his heart. Before he had even made his move, he had boasted to the point of shaking the heavens. But now that he was being suppressed by Shangguan Yunqi, he couldn't hold back. His expression was grim, and he didn't say a word. However, every time he attacked with deadly force. Seeing that Tong Wuan was gradually gaining control of the situation, the purple-robed youth shifted his gaze to the rest of the people. However, Tong Wuan gradually gained the upper hand. As for the others, because they had to deal with too many people, they had no other way. They could only use the advantage of their higher cultivation levels to wear them down. If he wanted to defeat Shangguan Yunqi, Muyi, and Dao Feiyang, it would take a long time. What a bunch of trash. Seeing this, the purple-robed youth frowned. The ominous premonition in his heart became clearer. Suddenly, the purple-robed youth gritted his teeth. He didn't want to waste any more time. His figure flashed, and he rushed into the crowd that was full of fighting. Swish, swish, swish. The purple-robed youth's speed was extremely fast. In just a few breaths, he had rushed into the hundreds of people. Thunder domain! Crackle! Suddenly, purple thunderbolts bloomed. Countless thunderbolts appeared in the air out of nowhere. Immediately, they transformed into numerous lightning snakes that were completely formed from thunderbolts. Swish! Swish! Those thunderbolts burst out with extremely strong power. They were like agile little snakes that quickly drilled into the bodies of many of the freshmen. Pucci! In an instant, those freshmen who were in the middle of fighting felt their bodies stiffen. Some of them were struck by the thunderbolts, causing them to twitch incessantly. The feeling of being electrocuted was like a tide that constantly hit their bodies, causing them to scream miserably. Not only that, but their attacks also slowed down, causing their hearts to sink. One had to know that their opponents were all Saint-level experts who had stayed in Cebu Gakuen for 10 years. They were definitely not fools. Seeing them in a daze, and seeing the purple thunderbolts, they immediately came to their senses. They suddenly sped up and intensified their attacks, each exploding with their strongest power. In an instant, the entire space seemed to have been struck by thunder. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. However, within the thunderbolts, there was a biting, cold, murderous intent. Those seniors knew the principle of taking advantage of a person's weakness to take their life. Naturally, they wouldn't miss such a good opportunity. In an instant, the situation in the field gradually tilted towards the seniors. Thunder's fury. A cold shout suddenly sounded. The purple-robed youth suddenly appeared between Shangwan Yunqi and Tong Wuan. His body flashed with purple light and released thunderbolts. Crackle! Almost instantly, in the void, dozens of thunderbolts suddenly gathered together and struck towards Shangwan Yunqi's head. Shangwan Yunqi's heart was on guard against Tong Wuan. He didn't expect the purple-robed youth to suddenly attack. In addition, the purple-robed youth's strength was too strong, far surpassing theirs. Shangwan Yunqi didn't even have time to react before his whole body was struck by the thunderbolts. Shangwan Yunqi involuntarily let out a shrill cry. He only felt his whole body twitching and numb. The supreme sacred weapon in his hand fell to the ground with a bang. In an instant, Shangwan Yunqi was jolted awake. He looked at the purple-robed youth with eyes full of shock. Shangwan Yunqi had long seen that among the 80 seniors, the purple-robed youth was the strongest. However, he had never expected that when the purple-robed youth attacked, he wouldn't even have the strength to resist. Go down. Just as Shangwan Yunqi was in a daze, the purple-robed youth waved his hands continuously. Crackle! Thunderbolts burst out, continuously blooming, and fiercely struck Shangwan Yunqi's head. With a muffled groan, Shangwan Yunqi only felt his vision darken as he was struck by the thunderbolts and sent flying. Not only him, but Muyi and Dao Feiyang were also struck by the thunderbolts without any warning. They were like kites with their strings cut as they were sent flying backwards. Crackle! 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 Thunderbolts surged and dark clouds covered the sky. The strong pressure of heaven and earth filled the hearts of all the freshmen with despair. Chapter 446. In less than a dozen breaths of time, all the freshmen, including Shangwan Yunqi, Muyi, and Dao Feiyang, were sent flying by the thunderbolts that filled the sky. In an instant, Shangwan Yunqi and the others looked at the purple-robed youth with eyes full of horror. Although they expected the purple-robed youth to be strong, they did not expect him to be strong to this extent. With just a wave of his hand, he could summon a sky full of thunderbolts and defeat them. Shangwan Yunqi, Muyi, and Dao Feiyang were a little better off. They had top-grade sacred weapons that absorbed a lot of the damage for them. However, The others were not so lucky. Their meridians were filled with lightning, and they were unable to move at all. They could only look on helplessly as the older students surrounded them with sinister smiles on their faces. TSK, TSK. No one can resist Brother Yuan's attack. It's just a group of freshmen. Why don't you just hand over your points? The seniors looked at the freshmen with disdain. Back then, we were also bullied by the older students in the same way. This time, we're here to get back at them. Yes, the reason why the Academy held this hunt is to suppress you and let you understand that there is always someone better than you. Junior brothers and sisters, don't blame us. This is the idea of the Academy elders. Let us teach you how to behave in Cebu Gakuen. Seeing that the freshmen did not have the strength to resist, the seniors relaxed and laughed. Hearing their words, the freshmen trembled and could not help but laugh bitterly. Indeed, after experiencing this hunt, all of their arrogance had been ground down. There were too many geniuses in Cebu Gakuen. They could be dazzling and arrogant in the past, but it did not mean that they could be arrogant here. Thinking of this, the freshmen's resentment towards the seniors lessened a lot. They were just complaining. If they wanted to snatch points, then snatch points. Why do they have to be so heavy-handed? The thunderbolts contained a violent power that accumulated in their meridians, causing their bodies to ache. If the thunderbolts exploded, they would suffer serious internal injuries. Of course, UNMO also knew this and did not use the power to detonate the thunderbolts. A pinnacle saint was so terrifying. With just a casual wave of his hand, before the divine lightning that filled the sky could fully display its power, it had already caused everyone to lose their ability to fight. However, while UNMO was in the limelight, Tong Wuan became displeased. He gnashed his teeth and firmly stared at Shangguan Yunqi and the others. Previously, he was the one who was boasting. In the end, when the fight really started, he didn't even get rid of a freshman. It was too shameful. If his strength was not as good as Shangguan Yunqi, then so be it. However, he had a chance to win, and when he finally managed to suppress Shangguan Yunqi, UNMO attacked and repelled everyone with one move. This made Tong Wuan very angry. If it weren't for UNMO's high status, he would have probably directly attacked UNMO. Suddenly, a few thunderbolts burst forth from the spear in Shangguan Yunqi's hand. In the next moment, Shangguan Yunqi's aura surged. He swept the spear in his hand, and the sharp edge of the spear pierced towards UNMO. Noticing this, UNMO exclaimed in surprise and looked at Shangguan Yunqi in astonishment. Interesting. With a smirk, UNMO clapped his hands and said, "A mere mid-stage saint can actually neutralize my purple lightning godly thunder. Although you borrowed the power of a supreme sacred artifact, it's still very impressive." "Oomph," Shangguan Yunqi said in a low voice. "Then open your eyes wide and watch. There will be more things that will surprise you." "Good," UNMO praised. As expected, the genius ranked second on the spiritual hunter list. This batch of freshmen is indeed very strong. In the past, even among the seniors, there was no one as strong as you. But it's a pity that you met us this year. But now I'm even more curious about the guy ranked first. I hope you won't disappoint me. As he spoke, UNMO's expression was indifferent. He praised Shangguan Yunqi and the others, but in reality, he didn't take them seriously. Hearing the meaning behind UNMO's words, Shangguan Yunqi and the others were burning with anger. Immediately, Muyi and Dao Feiyong sat down cross-legged, trying their best to neutralize the thunderbolts in their bodies. In their opinion, with Shangguan Yunqi here, they could hold on for a while. "Haha, interesting. I'd like to see if you can neutralize my thunderbolts." The corners of UNMO's mouth curled up. He waved his hand and ordered the people who wanted to attack Muyi and Dao Feiyong to retreat. He looked at Shangguan Yunqi coldly and said, "At this time, you still want to fight?" "That's right." The power in Shangguan Yunqi's body surged. His whole body bloomed with golden light, shining on him like a god. The long spear in his hand shone brightly, containing a sharp metal aura. Metal domain, supreme sacred artifact. UNMO was slightly surprised. Feeling the amazing power in Shangguan Yunqi's body, his expression gradually became serious. I'll attack with all my strength. If I lose, you can take my points. This time, I just want to see how big the gap is between us. Shangguan Yunqi's eyes were filled with flames. His heart was filled with fighting spirit. The long spear in his hand trembled unconsciously. Dragon spear. In the biting cold voice, golden light gathered in the sky. Countless metal auras swarmed and poured into the long spear. Break! The long spear trembled. The sharp golden light had already wrapped around the spear's body and blade. The light on the spear was oppressive, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Yun! As the last word fell, Shangguan Yunqi's right shoulder shook and the long spear suddenly broke through the air. The sharp spear blade brought along a sharp golden light. It was like a rainbow, shooting towards UNMO at high speed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of the spear piercing through the air rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. Is such power. Is this guy really a freshman? He's only a middle saint. How can he display such power? When they felt the power contained within the golden light, the surrounding dozen or so older students were all stunned. Even Tong Wuan's brows were tightly knitted together. Facing such an attack, he actually had the intention to retreat in his heart. This made him shocked. He could not believe it. Could it be that he was really not Shangguan Yunqi's opponent? For a moment, the seniors who were looking down on the freshmen all widened their eyes and mouths as they looked at Shangguan Yunqi in a daze. Their cheeks were burning with pain. This kind of power was more than enough to defeat them. Interesting, the corner of Yuan Mo's mouth curled up. His expression did not change. He opened his hands, and purple lightning quietly moved between them. Since you want to fight, I'll let you see how big the gap is between us. Hey, Purple Knight Heavenly Net. Chapter 447. Purple Knight Heavenly Net. With a shout, purple lightning turned into threads that wrapped around Yuan Mo's hands. In just a moment, those threads turned into a large net that emitted lightning. Go! Seeing the golden spear shooting at him, Yuan Mo pushed with both hands, and the net made of lightning whizzed out. Wong! The lightning net clashed with the golden spear. The golden spear, which was originally surging with ferocious attacks, was blocked the moment it collided with the net. The surging power poured out and exploded. However, the spear was entangled in the net, and it couldn't charge out. Seeing this, the freshmen couldn't help but sigh. They were in complete despair. Shangguan Yunqi's face was grave. He didn't expect his attack to be so easily dispelled. Humph! Metal field explode. Snorting, Shangguan Yunqi's hands danced, forming a hand seal. Rumble. In the next moment, the golden spear suddenly exploded. Countless golden rays of light, like sharp daggers, flew out in all directions with a shio 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 sound. Those daggers were extremely sharp, and the net made of lightning threads couldn't stop them at all. It was torn apart. In the next moment, those daggers flashed with golden light and shot at Yuan Mo. The sharp sword chi whizzed over, and Yuan Mo's hair flew up. His face hurt, and he was shocked. Purple Knight Heavenly Net was his strongest defensive martial technique. Ordinary late-stage saints couldn't break it, but today it was torn apart by someone who just became a saint. He was shocked. While he was distracted, the daggers, infused with sword chi, suddenly pierced Yuan Mo's face. Clang! Clang! When the sharp blade collided with his cheek, a metallic sound rang out, and sparks flew. Yuan Mo closed his eyes. The flames of rage in his heart rose up. He was a pinnacle saint, but he was defeated by someone who just became a saint, and his face was slapped. How could he not be angry? Pucci! Pucci! The daggers were extremely sharp, and they kept stabbing at Yuan Mo's face, creating countless sparks. At the same time, some sharp chi penetrated his skin and invaded every inch of his meridians. Wong! The metal field exploded, and Yuan Mo's tough skin cracked open. Red blood flowed out. SSS, seeing this, everyone was shocked, and their mouths were wide open. They couldn't believe that Shangguan Yunqi had really hurt UNMO. A dignified peak saint had actually been injured by an intermediate stage saint realm expert and turned into a bloody figure. It was truly too unbelievable. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe it. Shangguan Yunqi had to admit that he had cheated. No one had expected Shangguan Yunqi to be able to completely hide the metal domain within the supreme sacred artifact. Therefore, when the metal domain erupted, it combined with the power of the supreme sacred artifact to break through the violet night net. It even injured UNMO while he was distracted. If he hadn't caught UNMO by surprise, he wouldn't have been able to hurt him, even with his supreme sacred weapon and his metal realm. Poochie, Poochie. Amidst the crisp sounds, one wound after another split open, and blood flowed out. UNMO had already turned into a bloody man. Everyone, including Shangguan Yunqi, stared at UNMO nervously. After a long while, the sound finally disappeared. UNMO was bathed in blood. Everyone's breathing quickened, and they stared at UNMO. After a while, a cold voice sounded. "Oh, he," with a cold laugh. UNMO slowly opened his eyes. In an instant, the blood on his body quickly evaporated, turning into wisps of smoke and dissipating, revealing his body. At this moment, UNMO's face was pale, and he looked like a dead man. His aura was much weaker than before. No matter how strong UNMO was, if there was a problem with his meridians, it wouldn't be a small injury. Huff! Seeing this, Shangguan Yunqi smiled bitterly and put away his spear, giving up on resisting. That attack was his strongest attack, and it couldn't do much damage to UNMO. If he continued, he would only be looking for trouble. However, even though Shangguan Yunqi wanted to stop, UNMO didn't want it to end. "I've experienced your attack, and it's not bad," said UNMO coldly. He stepped forward and gradually closed in on Shangguan Yunqi. His eyes were filled with coldness. "Next, try my attack." As soon as he finished speaking, UNMO's hands formed a bow and arrow. In the next moment, an endless amount of purple lightning appeared and condensed into a longbow that flashed with electric light. An electric arrow was placed on the longbow, and lightning kept bursting out. In an instant, the entire space was filled with the aura of lightning, and crackling sounds could be heard. I admit defeat. Feeling the power of lightning, Shangguan Yunqi's face changed, and he quickly begged for mercy. What a joke! He was already exhausted and had no strength to resist. With this attack, it was very likely that he would die. Admit defeat. UNMO's eyes gradually turned cold, and he shouted, "Don't you think it's too late to admit defeat now?" Hearing that, many senior students looked at Shangguan Yunqi with eyes full of sympathy. UNMO looked gentle, but once he was angered, he was a complete madman. "Lightning arrow! Break for me!" With a cold voice, UNMO knocked an arrow on the bow with both hands. His right hand suddenly loosened, and the bowstring made of thunder vibrated. In the next moment, an arrow made of thunder shot out like a cannonball towards Shangguan Yunqi. Shangguan Yunqi's face changed. Before he could dodge, he felt a sharp pain in his chest, and a huge force came from nowhere, pressing down on his chest. His body was instantly slammed to the ground by that huge force. The power of lightning poured into Shangguan Yunqi's body, filling up his meridians. In an instant, Shangguan Yunqi's body was covered in lightning, and he collapsed on the ground, twitching. A thick smoke quietly floated out of Shangguan Yunqi's body. "It's so miserable." He dared to provoke UNMO. This brother is really tough. Many seniors looked at this scene with sympathy. UNMO glanced at Shangguan Yunqi. Seeing him in such a miserable state, the anger in his heart dissipated, and he waved his hand to disperse the power of lightning. The difference in strength between him and Shangguan Yunqi was too great. If he did not disperse the lightning, Shangguan Yunqi would die, and he would be in big trouble. The power of lightning dissipated, and Shangguan Yunqi's body went limp. His breathing was much steadier, and his face was bitter. "Are you still going to resist?" UNMO's figure landed, and he glanced at the freshman. He said coldly, "Hand over your points, and I won't make things difficult for you." Hearing this, the freshman hesitated for a moment, then sighed and accepted their fate. UNMO let out a long sigh and waved his hand, indicating for the seniors to go and search for points. However, at that instant, a loud voice could be heard. "You want to take our points? Don't you think you're dreaming?" Chapter 448. Trying to take the points of us freshmen. Don't you think you're dreaming? A loud voice rang out. In that instant, all the seniors were stunned. They frowned in surprise. They weren't the only ones. The freshmen were stunned as well. Soon after, they were overjoyed and excited. Could it be that the other freshmen had rushed over to help? If there were more of them, they would definitely be able to defeat UNMO and the others. When there were enough of them, it didn't matter how great the difference in strength was, unless UNMO and the others were in the Great Sage realm. They stood up and looked in the direction of the voice. To their surprise, they saw a group of 5 leisurely walking over from the edge of the formation. In that instant, the freshmen's mouths twitched. They couldn't help but despair. 5 people. What use could 5 freshmen be? UNMO raised an eyebrow. He glanced at the 5 of them and suddenly sneered. Interesting. 3 mid-stage saints and 2 half-sages. Such a group dares to boast so shamelessly. Are these guys crazy? For a moment, many senior students pointed at the 5 of them, their eyes filled with disbelief. Hundreds of saints and thousands of half-sages have been taken care of by them. What kind of backing did these freshmen have? How dare they speak to them like that? The group was Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu, and the others. Originally, Lin Yi had planned to wait until UNMO took everyone's points before appearing. But later on, he changed his mind. After entering Cebu Gakuen, he would be surrounded by opponents. Although it would greatly increase his strength, it would be troublesome if no one helped him. If he could bribe these freshmen, he might be able to play a surprising role in the future. Therefore, Lin Yi stepped forward. "You 5, are you here to die?" UNMO raised an eyebrow and suddenly laughed. "Since you've taken the initiative to come out, I'll kindly accept your points." Lin Yi indifferently said, "There are many people who want to take my points, but in the end, they gave it to me instead." UNMO narrowed his eyes and felt a chill in his heart. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling when he saw Lin Ye's indifferent expression. This surprised UNMO. If the person who came was strong, he could understand. However, the 5 people before them were few in number and weak in strength. Why were they still so calm in the face of so many people? Could it be that there's an ambush behind these guys? It shouldn't be. Our formation can't be broken by ordinary people. The 5 of them must have been trapped by the formation from the beginning. Then why aren't they afraid in the slightest? Or perhaps their strength is not as weak as it appears on the surface? It had to be said that Lin Ye's group of 5 walking out with such calmness scared UNMO. This was too abnormal. There must be a demon behind this abnormality. After a long period of silence, the seniors suddenly came to their senses. UNMO and Tong Wuan both had serious expressions as they stared at Lin Ye's group of 5. In an instant, their mocking stopped. Seeing this, the freshmen were stunned and looked at Lin Ye's group of 5 in astonishment. What's going on? How could the 5 of them make so many seniors fall silent? Cough, cough. Shengwan Yunqi coughed violently and stood up with difficulty. He raised his head and was stunned when he saw Lin Ye's group of 5. "Yin Shihao, why are you here?" Blinking his eyes, Shengwan Yunqi was flabbergasted. He was well aware of Yin Shihao's strength. There was still a huge gap between them. Moreover, aside from Sun Wuyu, there was nothing special about the people around Yin Shihao. Therefore, Shengwan Yunqi was very surprised. Why did the seniors, including UNMO, fall silent when Yin Shihao's group arrived? "Brother Shengwan," not far away, Yin Shihao heard the exclamation and immediately nodded at Shengwan Yunqi. He and Shengwan Yunqi came from the same city and knew each other. Hearing this, UNMO's brows furrowed, and he was even more surprised. These 5 people knew Shengwan Yunqi, so they must be freshmen. After another moment of silence, UNMO took a step forward and blocked Lin Ye's group of 5. He barked, "Who are you people?" Of course, we're freshmen who came to participate in the assessment. Lin Yi tilted his head and glanced at UNMO. He suddenly laughed and said, "You're very strong. It seems like you have a lot of points." Hiss. Many seniors sucked in a breath of cold air. UNMO's face was incomparably solemn, and anger burned in his heart. Too arrogant. A mere fifth tribulation half-true saint dared to speak to him in such a manner. It was infuriating. However, just as UNMO was about to explode, he calmed down. His eyes narrowed as he stared fixedly at Lin Yi. Lin Ye's group, whether it was Sun Wuyu, Yin Shihao, or Shun Lingxiao, their strength was outstanding among the freshmen. Therefore, UNMO had placed a lot of importance on these 3 people from the beginning. But the moment Lin Yi stepped forward and spoke, UNMO was dumbfounded. What's going on? Why is a fifth tribulation half-true saint leading these people? The cautious UNMO had already placed Lin Yi in a high position in his heart. Want to snatch our points? UNMO raised his eyebrows and said solemnly, "Then make your move." As his voice fell, many of the older students, including Tong Wuan, rushed forward with a swoosh and surrounded Lin Ye's group of 5. Tong Wuan's strength wasn't weak, and he had sharp senses. The moment he saw Lin Ye's group of 5, he felt a sense of danger. After all, Lin Ye's group of 5 had robbed close to 100 seniors and killed many venerable beasts. Naturally, they had a special momentum. Huff! Letting out a sigh of relief, UNMO took a step forward. Crackling sounds rang in the air, and purple lightning gradually appeared around UNMO. Purple lightning flickered, illuminating UNMO as if he was a heavenly god who controlled lightning. Intense holy pressure fell from the sky, enveloping Lin Ye's group of 5. Sun Wuyu snorted coldly, and his right foot stomped on the ground. Sword intent soared to the sky, and it was incomparably sharp. In an instant, it tore apart the holy pressure. In an instant, the pressure on Lin Ye's group of 5 dissipated. Noticing this, UNMO's expression became incomparably solemn. He was flabbergasted. Who were these 5 people? Sun Wuyu was just a mid-stage Venerable Realm expert, but he gave off a feeling of a late-stage Venerable Realm expert. The other 2 people were also extraordinary. In his opinion, they weren't much weaker than Shangguan Yunqi and the others. As for Lin Yi, he was even more surprised. How could a mere fifth tribulation half-true saint control 5 people? Wait a minute, are you guys the 3 people who specialize in robbing seniors? Chapter 449. In the beginning, Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu, and the other 2 had robbed many seniors to spread the news. After Yin Shihao and the others joined in, the seniors who were robbed felt ashamed. Moreover, other people already knew of Lin Ye's group's existence, so they did not spread the news. Therefore, the other seniors thought that Lin Ye's group consisted of 3 people. UNMO did not think that Lin Ye's group of 5 was the group that specialized in robbing seniors. However, according to the original news, there was 1 mid-stage saint and 2 half-true saints. Although there were 2 more mid-stage saint experts in this group, UNMO still thought of this possibility. In an instant, UNMO's expression turned solemn. Lin Ye's name was ranked first on the Spirit Hunter list, and his points were more than 1 million. He had broken the Cebu Gakuin's record since its establishment, so it was natural that they were surprised. Hee, I didn't expect you guys to know of my existence. Lin Yi smiled and admitted, "That's right, I'm ranked first on the Spirit Hunter list, and I specialize in hunting seniors like you." Lin Yi. As soon as his voice fell, Lin Yi took a step forward with a proud expression on his face. His loud voice reverberated in the air. What? The 5 of them are the group that specializes in robbing seniors? Impossible, right? Hiss. That Lin Yi, who is ranked first on the Spirit Hunter list, is actually a fifth tribulation half-true saint? Hearing Lin Yi's voice, everyone was dumbfounded, and they stared at Lin Yi in a daze. They did not dare to believe that a fifth tribulation half-true saint could do this. If it wasn't for the pain from their injuries, they would have thought that they were dreaming. If *CK. Shangguan Yunqi stared blankly at Lin Yi, and he couldn't help but curse. He had always thought that Lin Yi, who was ranked first on the Spirit Hunter list, was a monstrous genius. At the very least, he had the strength of a late-stage saint. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to do something as cruel as robbing seniors. Until today, when he saw Lin Yi, he realized that Lin Ye's cultivation had barely met the requirements of the Fifth Tribulation Half-True Saint realm. *CK. That group of bastards, we thought you were a Ninth Tribulation Half-True Saint. Who would have thought that you were just a... Yuan Mo's face turned ashen, and he wanted to beat the hell out of those who spread the news. *CK. A Fifth Tribulation Half-True Saint was able to rob them. This showed how heaven-defying Lin Ye's talent was. Was a Fifth Tribulation Half-True Saint experts. What are that? Hearing that, UNMO and the other older students fell silent. Crackle, crackle. Suddenly, thunder rumbled. Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang, who were not far away, opened their eyes at the same time. Sparks of lightning burst out from their bodies. At this time, Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang finally expelled the lightning from their bodies. In an instant, everyone's gaze fell on them. In the moment they stood up, Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang felt everyone's gaze on them. They couldn't help but feel pressured. When they looked up, they were shocked. Blinking their eyes, they saw Lin Ye's group of 5 surrounded by seniors. Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang were dumbfounded. What's going on? More people came? Are they here to support us? Aren't there too few people, only 5? Frowning, Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang felt helpless in their hearts. So many of them had been defeated. What was the use of 5 more people? Wouldn't they just be giving points to the seniors? However, even though they were complaining, they didn't intend to give up on Lin Ye's group of 5. In their view, they were all freshmen. When facing the seniors, they had to unite against a common enemy. Walking to Lin Ye's side, Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang helped him up. They turned around and stared at Lin Yi, UNMO, and the others. Phew! Taking a deep breath, Yuan Mo's face suddenly became ferocious. His voice gradually became cold. We originally planned to find you after dealing with the other freshmen. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to us. Since that's the case, don't blame us for not showing mercy. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Lin Yi laughed out loud. When have you ever shown mercy? Attack. Yuan Mo's face was gloomy. He waved his hand, no longer boasting with Lin Yi. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, more than 80 figures burst out at the same time. The surging saint's aura covered the sky and oppressed Lin Ye's group of 5. Not good. Hurry up and help. Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang were slightly surprised. They didn't expect UNMO and the others to attack. They immediately leaped up. A blade aura mixed with emerald green light suddenly attacked those senior students. Buzz! The sharp blade light was astonishing. It cut through the air, causing several ripples. For a moment, the seniors felt a chill in their hearts. They only felt that it was difficult to resist the blade light. They quickly turned around, roared, and rushed toward Dao Feiyang and Mu Yi. However, Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang were not easy to deal with. An ordinary intermediate saint was no match for them. In addition, the seniors rushed to receive the attack in a hurry. The moment they came into contact, they were injured by the 2 of them. They immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. Seeing this scene, the rest of the seniors' faces changed drastically. They quickly divided up their forces to suppress Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang. In this way, Mu Yi and Dao Feiyang were suppressed and couldn't break through. However, their actions had also implicated 7 older students. Damn, the rest of you who can still fight, all of you go. Brothers, now that there are freshmen helping us, we can't let them fight alone. Shangguan Yunqi reacted and suddenly raised his arms and shouted. His voice seemed to have a demonic nature. It penetrated the hearts of the freshmen and mobilized their strength. Kill! We can't let our brothers be disappointed. Charge! For a moment, among the freshmen, those who could still move, got up and rushed out. More than 1,000 people rushed out like a torrent of steel. Although most of them were half-sages, with such a large number, they could still block a dozen saints. Realizing this, Lin Yi, who was surrounded by many seniors, felt a ripple in his heart. His original intention was to win over some freshmen, but he didn't expect to be moved by them. Huff! Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi couldn't help but shout, Sun Wuyu, Yin Shihao, Shun Lingxiao, attack together! Buzz! With a clear shout, Sun Wuyu immediately put his right index finger and middle finger together and slashed fiercely. Chapter 450. Swish! Sharp sword chi streaked across the sky and landed on the senior students' bodies. Poochie! Before the senior students could dodge, the sword chi swept past them. Blood splattered everywhere, and they screamed in pain. Attack! Tong Wuan roared. His body trembled, and a pure black armor appeared, wrapping around his body. Tong Wuan, who sensed danger, no longer held back. The same scene happened to every senior student. Although there were far fewer opponents this time, there was still an invisible pressure in their hearts, causing them to erupt with the potential of their lives. Rumble, beep, beep, beep. For a moment, thunder, fire, ice, hurricane, and various elemental domains and sacred weapons exploded. Powerful saintly aura filled the entire space, enveloping everyone. The aftershocks of the battle surged in the air, sweeping across everyone's bodies. Everyone felt as if they were in the middle of a mountain of swords and a sea of flames. They felt as if they would encounter danger at any moment and suffer heavy injuries. However, there were two exceptions in this battle. They were outside of the battle. Those two people were Lin Yi and UNMO. Lin Yi and UNMO looked at each other, and invisible fluctuations appeared around their bodies, dispersing all the attacks. After a long time, UNMO praised. As expected of the first place on the spiritual hunter list, although your cultivation realm is low, your strength is shocking. You're only a fifth tribulation half-true saint, but you have such strength. When you break through to the true saint realm, won't you be invincible under the great sage? Then why aren't you admitting defeat? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. UNMO, don't have the habit of admitting defeat, UNMO said solemnly. Not to mention, although you're strong, there's a huge gap between our cultivation realms. I don't believe that I will lose. Cut the crap, let's fight. Lin Yi raised his right hand, and scarlet flames appeared, flickering with red light. On his body, the Supreme Saint armor quietly covered him. Hiss! Supreme Sacred Artifact? Feeling the power of the Supreme Sacred Armor and raging flames, UNMO's lips twitched. He felt extremely depressed. A Supreme Saint artifact was something that even invincible saints coveted. Now, two Supreme Saint artifacts had appeared in the hands of a fifth tribulation half-true saint. How could they not be tempted? After all, he did not even have a single Supreme Sacred Artifact. So what if you have a Supreme Sacred Artifact? I don't believe that two Supreme Sacred Artifacts can make up for the gap between our realms. With a cold snort, UNMO didn't dare to hesitate any longer. He jumped up and waved his hands. The purple lightning turned into two short swords and shot towards Lin Yi. Heaven-destroying finger. Heavenly Emperor fist. Lin Yi clenched his right hand into a fist and pointed out with his left finger. Space trembled as a golden index finger shot out, accompanied by a biting cold fist wind that slammed into UNMO. Chop! UNMO was not afraid at all. He waved his hands, and two short swords made of thunder flew out. Pung, pung, pung. The short swords collided with the golden index finger and the fist wind. Powerful shockwaves swept out and rippled in the air. At the same time, UNMO waved his right hand, and more than 10 streaks of lightning fell from the sky, striking towards Lin Yi. Rumble! How fast were the lightning bolts? Lin Yi didn't even have time to react. He was hit by 2 streaks of lightning, and the Supreme Sacred Armor crackled with electricity. However, with the protection of the Supreme Sacred Armor, The lightning bolts had no effect on him. Hiss! UNMO sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw this scene. His face was extremely solemn. Although that attack wasn't his full strength, it had no effect on Lin Yi. That was enough to shock him. Since 2 streaks of lightning are useless, I'll use 20. 200. Gritting his teeth, UNMO's figure flickered as his hands formed seals. Frowning, Lin Yi was a little surprised. He quickly realized that UNMO was about to use a special martial technique. He twisted his body and dashed towards UNMO. The crimson flame danced in the air, and dozens of sword chi burst out from the sharp blade, shooting towards UNMO with a shio sound. At once, Lin Yi and UNMO were entangled in battle. The purple lightning was like a part of UNMO's body. It was like an extension of his body. Every time, it would appear at the right time to block Lin Yi's attack and force Lin Yi to step back. Plus, UNMO's cultivation level was high. Even if he was hit by Lin Yi's attack, he could withstand it for a while. After 15 minutes, UNMO's entire body shook. An invisible vibration exploded from his body. Bang! The shockwave was extremely powerful. Even with the protection of the supreme sacred armor, Lin Yi was still knocked back. Kaboom! Lin Yi was startled when he heard the rumbling of thunder. He focused his gaze and his face turned serious. UNMO was covered in purple lightning. In each of his hands, there was a ball of lightning. His body floated in the air and reflected in the lightning. He looked like a god. The lightning that filled the sky contained a violent power. It was like a volcano that was about to erupt. It was frightening. Lin Yi frowned. He stood where he was and stared at UNMO. He wanted to see what kind of tricks UNMO had up his sleeve. Ha ha ha. Lin Yi, your biggest mistake is that you didn't stop me from using this move. UNMO suddenly opened his eyes and smiled ferociously. He raised his hands high and endless lightning fell. Be angry, howl, be afraid. Fall into the endless abyss of lightning. Lightning prison. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched when he heard the Chinibyu words, and he retreated a few feet back. Kaboom! Almost in an instant, where Lin Yi was previously standing, several bolts of lightning struck down, suddenly splitting the ground, revealing a crack in the ground. Hiss! Seeing this, Lin Yi could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. That kind of power was truly shocking. Kaboom! Suddenly, dark clouds covered the sky, and muffled thunder resounded continuously. Ha ha! Lin Yi, get ready to fall into the abyss of lightning. Looking at Lin Yi's pale face, UNMO's face was ferocious. He clenched his right hand. Crackle! In an instant, countless purple thunderbolts rained down like raindrops. Kaboom! The thunder rumbled, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Oh no! Lin Yi's face changed. He knew how powerful those bolts of lightning were. Even with the protection of the supreme sacred armor, he did not dare to take them head-on. He twisted his body like an agile fish and shuttled through the lightning, avoiding the damage. No, this is impossible. Chapter 451. No, those lightning bolts are too fast. How can you dodge them? UNMO was shocked. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. However, that was the truth. Whether he believed it or not, it had already happened. F***CK. I don't believe that you can still dodge my attack when I cover this entire area. UNMO gritted his teeth and roared. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. Rumble! As he spat out that mouthful of blood, the lightning bolts in the sky became even more powerful. The fierce holy aura and the power of lightning were like a huge mountain that suddenly pressed down on everyone's hearts. In an instant, whether it was Mui, Dao Feiyong, Sun Wuyu, or the injured freshman, they all raised their heads and looked in the direction of the battle between Lin Yi and UNMO. Especially when the lightning bolts bloomed. Even though Sun Wuyu and the others were strong, they didn't dare to get too close to them. They all stopped fighting and ran away. As for the fighting, they stopped and stared at Lin Yi and UNMO. The faces of the older students were filled with shock, and their hearts were filled with astonishment. Originally, they thought that UNMO could easily get rid of Lin Yi. After all, no matter how strong Lin Yi was, in their opinion, he was only in the sage-to-be realm. The difference between him and UNMO was like heaven and earth. However, they never thought that Lin Yi could force UNMO to this step. Thunder Fury Prison was UNMO's ultimate move. It was a sage-to-be martial skill and was very powerful. How can this Lin Yi be so abnormal? Tong Wuan's expression changed slightly. His eyes kept darting around. Even if it was him, he would have suffered a crushing defeat against Mo's attack. However, Lin Yi was able to swim through the sea of lightning like a small fish. It really made him feel ashamed. Everyone could sense the power of Mo's lightning hell of wrath. As a result, they stopped fighting and turned their gazes towards Lin Yi and UNMO. From their point of view, as long as Lin Yi and UNMO were able to determine a victor, then the victor between them would also be decided. Why waste time? If they were injured and couldn't recover their points, they might not even be able to kill demonic beasts to stop their losses and get some points. They were seniors. Naturally, they wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Rumble. Following UNMO's roar, the lightning bolts fell faster and faster. Compared to the raindrops before, it was like a waterfall flowing backwards. However, Lin Yi directly used the wings of space. He flapped his wings and increased his speed. He was still able to rush to the next place before the lightning bolts fell. Damn it! Seeing this scene, UNMO's thunder territory. Gritting his teeth, UNMO's thunder domain appeared behind him. 90,000 lightning bolts lined up in the air. The aura in the air was filled with lightning once again. Noticing this, Lin Yi, who was in the Thunder Fury prison, was shocked. The Thunder Fury prison's power was already tiring for him. With the addition of the Thunder Fury's territory, he might not be able to dodge. He looked up. When he saw the 90,000 lightning bolts, his face turned pale. Fortunately, wasn't 99,999 lightning bolts. If UNMO also broke through the shackles of his territory and learned a superpower, coupled with the Thunder Fury prison, it would be unimaginable. Thunder Fury prison. Thunder Fury's territory. Combined. However, even if UNMO didn't break through the shackles of his territory, his Thunder Fury prison combined with his Thunder Fury prison was extremely powerful. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but breathe faster. They couldn't take their eyes off the Thunder Fury prison. Rumble! More than 90,000 lightning bolts merged with the sea of lightning. In an instant, the entire Thunder Fury prison was filled with the power of lightning. Purple lightning burst forth, blocking everyone's line of sight. In the next moment, Lin Yi could no longer dodge in the Thunder Fury prison that was filled with lightning. He could only curl up and pour all his energy into the supreme sacred armor. Buzz! Light flashed as the supreme sacred armor protected Lin Yi tightly. Rumble! Following this, countless lightning bolts continued to attack Lin Yi. With more than 90,000 lightning bolts and the Thunder Fury prison, more than 100,000 lightning bolts struck Lin Yi's body. Even with the supreme sacred armor, Lin Yi couldn't withstand it. He felt his body go numb, and his meridians were numb. After holding on for a long time, Lin Yi's body became more and more uncomfortable. He couldn't help but frown. When a surrounding crowd saw Lin Yi's body curled up in a corner and continuously being struck by lightning, they all became anxious. Especially the freshmen. They clenched their fists tightly. Every time they saw Lin Yi get hit by lightning, their bodies would twitch. They knew that their hopes were all on Lin Yi. If Lin Yi won, they would be able to keep their points. If Lin Yi lost, everything would be over. Thus, when they saw Lin Yi being struck by lightning, the hearts of those new students became incomparably worried. After a while, the lightning bolts continued to fall. Even with the protection of the supreme sacred armor, Lin Yi's meridians started to become numb. That was lightning summoned by a peak saint. How could it be dealt with so easily? The fact that Lin Yi could withstand it for so long was shocking. Phew! I can't take it anymore. I have to use other methods. Lin Yi rolled his eyes. With a thought, he summoned the 9 divine cauldrons. The moment the 9 divine cauldrons appeared, there was a special fluctuation. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning struck the 9 divine cauldrons, as if they were attracted by something. However, after the 9 divine cauldrons were struck by lightning, there was no reaction at all. Instead, they emitted purple light. With the 9 divine cauldrons absorbing the lightning, Lin Yi felt much more relaxed. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. After stretching his neck, Lin Yi quickly sat down to recover his strength. As for the lightning bolts that filled the sky, he left them to the 9 divine cauldrons to deal with. Of course, the crowd outside couldn't see the scene inside. They thought that Lin Yi was being attacked by lightning bolts, and they were still in a dilemma. The seniors fell silent. They couldn't believe that a fifth tribulation, half-true saint could withstand Yuan Mo's raging lightning prison for so long. At the very least, they knew that they couldn't do it. As time passed, Yuan Mo, who was laughing maniacally, gradually frowned. Generally speaking, even the great sage, who was in the same realm as him, wouldn't be able to withstand it for so long. He would have broken out of the raging lightning prison a long time ago. Otherwise, he would have lost without a doubt. However, Lin Yi was able to withstand the raging lightning prison for so long. This shocked him greatly. His eyes turned. Afraid that Lin Yi would be struck to death by the lightning, Yuan Mo waved his right hand and dispersed the raging lightning prison. Swish! When the lightning dissipated, the 9 divine cauldrons and Lin Yi's figure appeared in front of everyone, safe and sound. No, how can you be fine? Chapter 452. No, how can you be fine? Yuan Mo was dumbfounded when he saw that Lin Yi was unharmed. His body trembled, and shock filled his face. The Thunder Fury Prison and the Thunder Domain were already his strongest moves. If even these couldn't hurt Lin Yi, then there was nothing else he could do. Fear. Other than fear, Yuan Mo didn't have any other thoughts about Lin Yi. Not only Yuan Mo, everyone present was shocked. Other than Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul, who knew about Lin Yi's strength, they weren't too surprised. The others, including Yin Shihao and Shun Lingxiao, who had always believed in Lin Yi, were shocked. When the Lightning Fury Prison fell, they had despaired. Who would have thought that Lin Yi would give them such a big surprise? Dang! The 9 divine cauldrons floated in the air, emitting lightning energy from time to time. At this time, everyone recovered from their shock, and their attention was attracted by the 9 divine cauldrons. Looking at them, a look of shock appeared on their faces. They weren't weaklings, and they could naturally see that the 9 divine cauldrons were filled with lightning energy. So it's the 9 divine cauldrons that absorb the lightning energy in place of Lin Yi. That's the Lightning Fury Prison. It's the full force attack of a peak saint. Could it be that the 9 divine cauldrons are supreme saint artifacts? Otherwise, how could they absorb the lightning energy? Heavens, Lin Yi is just a 5th tribulation half-true saint. How could he have a supreme saint artifact? In an instant, everyone pointed at the 9 divine cauldrons curiously. Yuan Mo looked at the 9 divine cauldrons, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Supreme saint artifact, another supreme saint artifact. Yuan Mo's heart was filled with bitterness. He knew that he had lost this time, and he had lost thoroughly. He had never imagined that Lin Yi would have so many supreme saint artifacts in his hands. Moreover, the 9 divine cauldrons gave him a feeling that they were more terrifying than a supreme saint artifact. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to absorb all the damage from the Lightning Fury Prison. No one would have expected a 5th tribulation half-true saint to possess several supreme saint artifacts. Slowly opening his eyes, Lin Yi's essence, energy, and soul had recovered to their peak. He looked at Yuan Mo with a cold expression. Yuan Mo, what other tricks do you have? Hearing this, Yuan Mo's expression changed, and he put away all the bitterness and unwillingness from before. Even if he knew he would lose in front of so many people, Yuan Mo could not admit defeat. No matter what, he was still a senior and held a huge advantage. Even if he was defeated, it was still better than admitting defeat. Taking a deep breath, UNMO opened his right hand. Purple lightning surged and condensed into a giant hammer. Lightning blossomed on the hammer. It contained a powerful force and exuded the pressure of sage. Holding the giant hammer with both hands, UNMO's aura suddenly increased. However, Linya's expression did not change at all. Although UNMO looked powerful, the power of this move was weaker than the Thunderbolt Raging Prison and Thunderbolt Domain from before. Wong wong wong. 9 giant cauldrons slowly floated in the air, forming a formation that enveloped Lin Yi. Huh! With a light shout, UNMO's figure spun. Holding the giant hammer with both hands, he leaped high into the air like a rock. While he was in the air, he suddenly swung his hands, and the giant hammer condensed from lightning was flung out. In the whistling sound, the giant hammer released countless lightning bolts and smashed towards Lin Yi. 10,000 thunderbolts. A loud shout suddenly sounded. When the giant hammer came into contact with the 9 divine cauldrons, it exploded. The lightning contained in the cauldrons was like fireworks, exploding and blooming continuously. Lightning flashed, and the power was shocking. In an instant, the entire space froze, and it gave people a strong sense of oppression. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder rumbled, but the 9 divine cauldrons swayed and spun continuously, absorbing the lightning into the cauldrons. As for the lightning energy, it didn't even touch Lin Ye's body before it dissipated. Seeing this, UNMO frowned, and an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Looks like you're at your wit's end. A cold voice gradually sounded. Lin Yi stood up, raised his hands, and pressed forward. In an instant, the 9 divine cauldrons expanded a little, and like a cloud, they absorbed all the lightning. After losing the lightning, the giant hammer of lightning in the air quickly disappeared. In the next moment, the 9 divine cauldrons flew out, and with lightning speed, surrounded UNMO. Whoa! An invisible wave rippled between the 9 divine cauldrons. UNMO couldn't dodge in time, and was suddenly affected by the wave. It was as if he was in a quagmire, and he couldn't move at all. After struggling for a while, UNMO's expression changed drastically. His face was full of shock. He suddenly raised his head and stared at Lin Yi. He knew that Lin Yi was about to attack. As expected, Lin Yi slowly raised his right hand. The crimson flame appeared, and cold light surged on the blade. 9 divine cauldrons. 1 sword light chills 19 provinces. 32 times attack. With a light shout, Lin Yi held the raging crimson flame in his hand and suddenly slashed out horizontally. At the same time, the 9 divine cauldrons released a special wave, trapping UNMO's entire body. UNMO's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly tried to save himself. However, he couldn't summon any energy. He could only watch as the sword chi swept towards him and swept past his body. The moment the sword chi slashed through UNMO's body, he flew out like a kite with a broken string. Every inch of his skin emitted a heart-wrenching pain. Like a tidal wave, it continuously attacked his nerves. As soon as he landed, UNMO couldn't help but tremble. His skin cracked and red blood flowed out. His face was deathly pale, and there was no trace of blood. 9 divine cauldrons, 12 styles heavenly sword, and 32 times attack. Furthermore, UNMO was injured and wasn't in his peak condition. It was understandable that he couldn't withstand Lin Ye's attack. However, the others didn't see it. They thought that Lin Yi had defeated UNMO in his peak condition, and they sucked in a breath of cold air. A mere 5th tribulation, half-true saint defeating a peak saint. This completely shattered their understanding. It could be said that this was an unprecedented feat that would never be replicated in the future. Retrieving the crimson flame, Lin Yi calmed his breathing and walked towards UNMO. 1 sword light chills 19 provinces, 32 times attack, and 9 divine cauldrons were too much for him to handle. You've lost. Hand over your points. Lin Ye's voice was cold, and the smile on UNMO's face turned bitter. Without any hesitation or reluctance, UNMO generously transferred all his points to Lin Yi. Hiss! Chapter 453. The new students were surprised. They could see that Lin Yi had used up a lot of energy, and the strength he could use would not be as strong as before. Therefore, they were originally wondering if they should attack together and defeat Lin Yi. But they never thought that Yuan Mo, who had always been crazy and refused to admit defeat until the last moment, would hand over his points so decisively. Because of this, many of the older students' hearts sank. They did not dare to attack Lin Yi again. They respected Yuan Mo's strength. Even Yuan Mo admitted defeat. It was obvious how strong Lin Yi was. Perhaps even if they attacked, they would be suppressed by Lin Yi. Thinking of this, the older students could only sigh silently. Yuan Mo was defeated, and they could not avoid the fate of having their points stolen. After receiving Yuan Mo's points, Lin Yi was also stunned. He frowned and looked at Yuan Mo carefully. He thought that Yuan Mo would not give up so easily. He would resist at least a little. He did not expect him to give his points to him so easily. A total of 630,000 points. But Yuan Mo did not seem to feel the slightest bit of heartache. This surprised Lin Yi. Lin Yi knew that most of the points were saved by Yuan Mo. Now that they were all in his hands, Yuan Mo should be angry and resentful. But he was so calm that Lin Yi couldn't make head or tail of it. After a moment of silence, Lin Yi asked in surprise, "Most of these points were collected by you. You're giving them to me so easily?" Yuan Mo raised his head and looked at Lin Yi. He asked in return, "What else?" Lin Yi was stunned. Then he shook his head and smiled. Yuan Mo was an interesting person. Indeed, under these circumstances, he had no strength to resist. Why should he suffer? Points and the like could be earned again. It wasn't worth it to suffer. Moreover, to Yuan Mo, earning points was not difficult. If he had not exchanged for a Saint-class martial skill before coming to the hunting war, he would have millions of points. Therefore, these several 100,000 points were not very attractive to Yuan Mo. With a wave of his hand, Yin Shihao and Shun Lingxiao quickly went to collect the points under Lin Yi's signal. The reason why the older students had participated in the hunting war was to accumulate points. They were reluctant to hand over their points, but when they turned to look at Lin Yi, they could only sigh helplessly. Seeing this, Shengwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, Dao Feiyang, and the other new students couldn't help but feel envious. Although they were strong and had obtained a lot of points, they were all obtained from hunting demonic beasts, searching for heavenly treasures, or from plundering other freshmen in the beginning. They didn't even get a single point from the seniors. But this time, Lin Yi made a strong move and defeated Yuan Mo. Only then did he obtain a complete victory. They didn't dare to go up and take a share of the loot. If it weren't for Lin Yi, they wouldn't even be able to keep their own points. If they still went up and asked for points, that would be too shameless. After waiting for Lin Yi, Yin Shihao, and Shun Lingxiao to finish dividing the points, Shengwan Yunqi went up and cupped his fists. "Many thanks for the help, brothers." As he spoke, Shengwan Yunqi glanced at Yin Shihao with a strange expression. Yin Shihao's strength was not as good as his, but there was only a small gap between them. It was possible that he would be overtaken. What made Shengwan Yunqi's heart hurt even more was that he had done his best to lead so many people to fight to obtain those points. But Yin Shihao only needed to follow Lin Yi to surpass him. This made him feel very uncomfortable. "We are all freshmen, so we should help each other." Lin Yi smiled. "That's good." Shengwan Yunqi saw that Lin Yi was so united and was very pleased. He said in a deep voice, "This way, when we enter the learning palace, we should be able to avoid being bullied by the older students." As soon as he finished speaking, someone laughed out loud. Everyone frowned and turned their heads, only to see Yuan Mo laughing. "You guys are really thinking too much." Sensing everyone's gaze, Yuan Mo grinned and said, "The number of older students who came to participate in this hunting war is not even 1%. Moreover, our strength is not worth mentioning in the learning palace. To put it bluntly, I barely have a name on the pinnacle ranking. Above me, there are hundreds of people. You've already expended a lot of energy just to defeat me. If you want to protect the freshmen in the learning palace, you're really thinking too much. Moreover, it's the same every year. We've all been bullied by the older students. If not, how can the older students show their advantage? Those who have always been at the bottom of the ladder will eventually get some benefits. Hearing this, Shangwan Yunqi and the others could not help but smile bitterly. From Yuan Mo's words, they could tell that this was inevitable. After all, the older students had started cultivating 10 years earlier than them, or even dozens of years. Unless their talent surpassed theirs by too much, they would not be able to catch up. Among the 10,000 of them, those who could surpass the older students and successfully gain a foothold would be less than 100, or even less. Moreover, to ensure the survival of the weaker older students, the Learning Palace would not interfere too much. Man proposes, God disposes. Lin Yi suddenly smiled and said, "We just need to do what we should do." With Lin Ye's words, Shangwan Yunqi and the others let out a sigh of relief. Yuan Mo stared at Lin Yi for a moment, then suddenly grinned and said, "Lin Yi, you're very special." "Oh." Raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi turned to Yuan Mo and asked, "How am I special?" "I can't say." Yuan Mo shook his head and said, "I'm looking forward to your performance now. If you could defeat Tai Yu and Tai Yi, then you'll be the first to defeat the older students in 100 years. "The first in 100 years?" Lin Yi asked curiously. "There's someone who defeated the older students as a new student." "That's right." Yuan Mo grinned and said, "That person is the current head palace master. That's why I'm looking forward to your performance. If you can do it, Yuan Mo will submit to you." "Ha ha!" Lin Yi laughed and said, "If someone can do it, then so can I. I like to see how you'll submit to me." Smirking, Lin Yi waved his hand and said, "You guys can go. There's still a day before it ends. You can still cut your losses and not lose all your points. Points are not a problem." Yuan Mo curled his lips and said, "It's good to be confident, but don't brag and bite your tongue. Tai Yu and Tai Yi might not be my match in a one-on-one fight, but if they work together, I'll have to retreat." Chapter 454. Yuan Mo glanced at Sun Wuyu and the others and said in a low voice, "These guys are strong, but they still can't stop the later stage saints. And us." Before Lin Yi could reply, Shangwan Yunqi and the others stepped forward and said in a low voice, "It's just 5 later stage saints. We can stop them. Brother Lin, you just have to deal with those 2 guys." Sun Wuyu snorted. "Late stage saints? So what? I've killed many later stage saints." "Ah, but the later stage saints of Cebu Gakuin are not ordinary people." Yuan Mo glanced at the freshman and then at Shangwan Yunqi. He was surprised to see that Shangwan Yunqi's injuries had recovered. "Hiss, if you guys work together, you can hold the others back. But you guys have to be careful." At this point, Yuan Mo smiled. "You will unite, and so will us seniors. My brothers will also participate in tomorrow's battle. So, will you still let us leave safely?" As his words sounded out, all the older students turned their gazes towards Lin Yi. They were nervous and couldn't help but blame Yuan Mo. They were afraid that Lin Yi would attack them and make it impossible for them to participate in tomorrow's battle. Yuan Mo had enough ability to obtain points, so he naturally didn't care about those points. But they were different. To them, points were their lifeblood. Now that their points had been snatched away, not only did they work for nothing, but they also lost a lot. How could they be willing to accept that? Therefore, as long as they left, they would definitely work together with the remaining seniors and do everything they could to get their points back. If they lost, they would just give up. After all, they had lost their points. In a split second, all of the new students, including Shangwan Yunqi, Muyi, and the others, stared at the older students. Their eyes gradually turned cold. These seniors were very strong. Without 1,000 or 2,000 people, it would be difficult to hold them back. In addition to the remaining seniors, they might not have enough people. Therefore, after a rough calculation, Shangwan Yunqi and the others felt a chill in their hearts. Even if they couldn't cripple them, they couldn't fight in their peak condition. As for trapping them, that was a fantasy. The reason they handed over their points was not that they couldn't leave, but that they didn't want to be seriously injured. If they wanted to leave, they could only pay the price of being seriously injured if they couldn't kill them. Sun Wuyu also took a few steps forward. His aura was biting cold. "What are you guys doing?" Lin Yi waved his hand and said to Yuan and Mo, "Since I said I would let you leave safely, I won't go back on my words. Furthermore, I don't believe that we freshmen will lose to you. In tomorrow's battle, we will definitely give you a surprise." "Oh." Yuan and Mo was shocked when he heard Lin Yi's reply. He looked at Lin Yi in astonishment. He originally thought that even if Lin Yi didn't give the order to attack, he would think of ways to exhaust their strength. He didn't expect Lin Yi to be so open and aboveboard. Those older students, on the other hand, were wild with joy as they bowed to Lin Yi one after another. "All right, you guys can leave." Lin Yi waved his hand and said indifferently, "We still have things to discuss." "Ha ha ha. Interesting, this is too interesting." Yuan and Mo laughed loudly. "Lin Yi, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's battle." As soon as he finished speaking, Yuan and Mo waved his hand and left with the senior students in a grandiose manner. Although he didn't get any benefits this time, and was even injured, Yuan and Mo still laughed and left. He seemed to be very happy. Noticing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. This Yuan and Mo was an interesting person. After Yuan and Mo left, Sun Wuyu asked curiously, "Captain, why didn't you control them? If they join the battle tomorrow, it might be a tough battle, especially that Yuan and Mo. He's too strong. I don't even have the confidence to fight him." Sun Wuyu couldn't help but gasp at the thought of Yuan and Mo being bathed in lightning. The gap between a pinnacle saint and a mid-stage saint was too big. In addition, Yuan Mo's talent wasn't weak. Therefore, Sun Wuyu didn't have the confidence to fight him. Shangwan Yunqi and the others looked at Lin Yi curiously. After all, they weren't familiar with Lin Yi. Even if they had doubts, they didn't dare to ask. "It's okay. At most, it'll be 1 against 3. Lin Yi stroked his chin. Earlier in the battle, he realized that the 9 divine cauldrons had a great suppressive effect on lightning. Therefore, he didn't mind adding Yuan and Mo to his team when dealing with Tai Yu and Tai Yu. Besides, he had so many points now. It was time to exchange them for something to improve himself. After pondering for a while, Lin Yi looked at Shangwan Yunqi and asked, "We only have this many people? Didn't you say that 10,000 people passed the test? But many of them are lone wolves. They don't want to join us." Shangwan Yunqi smiled bitterly. "For example, that third-ranked Qingwei. I've tried to rope her in several times, but she's always been unwilling. She's always been a lone wolf. There are also some who are related to the older students. Naturally, they'll follow them. TSK, they're selling us out." Lin Yi pursed his lips and asked curiously, "Qingwei is a lone wolf, and she's pretty strong. She can still get so many points. I heard that she has the ability to control demonic beasts. They can help her find treasures and slaughter other demonic beasts. That's why her points are rising so quickly." Shangwan Yunqi praised. "The last time I saw her, she was sitting on a saint-level giant tiger. She's very strong. If we can rope her in, our chances of winning will be much higher. Although I'm not Yuan Mo's match alone, with this brother and Qingwei, we can still hold him back. It's okay." Shaking his head, Lin Yi said in a low voice, "We're still too few. Send some people out to find those lone wolves. As long as they understand the importance of the situation, I think they'll come. This time, it's not just about points. It's also about our status in the academy. If we lose this battle, we'll be at the bottom of the hierarchy in the academy. Everyone will dare to bully us." "That's right." Chapter 455. After the discussion, Shangwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Dao Feiyong sent people to look for the rest of the freshmen and spread the news of the last battle. As for Lin Yi, he silently opened his bracelet. After obtaining the points from Yuan and Mo and the others, Lin Yi's points had reached over 4 million. Even Yin Shihao and Shun Lingxiao had taken advantage of him, obtaining more than 400,000 points in one fell swoop, surpassing Shangwan Yunqi and rushing to second and third place. After opening his bracelet, Lin Yi looked at the treasures that could be exchanged. As time passed, everyone's points increased, and the treasures that could be exchanged were also gradually updated, becoming stronger and stronger. There were even 10,000 inscription sacred weapons, sacred level cultivation techniques, sacred level martial techniques, and even various types of sacred elixirs. Lin Yi currently did not lack sacred weapons, cultivation techniques, or martial techniques. Therefore, he focused on sacred elixirs and formations. Most of the formations were scrolls that needed to be comprehended by oneself to display the formations. However, there are also some one-time formations that could be activated as long as one threw them out. Tomorrow's battle. Who knows if there will be freshmen joining the seniors? Those seniors from the intersect cannot be underestimated. I have to exchange for more formations. Thinking of this possibility, Lin Yu was not stingy with his points. He spent nearly 1 million points to exchange for dozens of one-time formations. As for the scrolls, he did not exchange for them. After exchanging for the scrolls, Lin Yi looked at the elixirs again. After exchanging for some elixirs for territory comprehension, Lin Yi exchanged for many sacred spirit elixirs. Each sacred spirit elixir could increase his foundation. Of course, the effect would gradually decrease. However, in order to let Silent Soul break through as soon as possible and have the power to protect himself in the battle, Lin Yi could only choose to throw in sacred spirit elixirs. After exchanging for these, Lin Yi had more than 2 million points in his hands. He decided to look at the cultivation techniques. Sizing it up like this, Lin Yi was stunned by one of the cultivation methods. The Ascending Dragon Transformation was an early Saint class technique. It could boost the power of any technique related to Dragon Chi. On its own, the Ascending Dragon Transformation was useless, but it could support other cultivation methods. In that case, the power of 2 Saint-level cultivation methods added together would be absolutely astonishing. His breathing quickened. Without any hesitation, Lin Yi purchased the Ascending Dragon Transformation. It had to be said that the elders could also see the effects of the Ascending Dragon Transformation. They'd spent a total of 1 million points to exchange for it, and this was within the trial. If he wanted to exchange for it outside, he would need at least 7 to 8 million points. After accidentally finding the Ascending Dragon Transformation, Lin Yi carefully looked through the martial skills and saint tools. If he saw something good again, he wouldn't miss it. However, these items were only prepared by the elders for people who had just become saints. There weren't many precious treasures. After reading it all, Lin Yu was just about to turn off the wristband when he suddenly realized that there was another option in the list of saint medicines that he could exchange for. After consuming the sacred dragon's blood essence, one's physique would be strengthened, and one would be able to better comprehend Dragon Chi-related cultivation techniques and martial skills. Perhaps, with this sacred dragon blood essence and the Ascending Dragon Transformation, my comprehension of the Divine Dragon 9 transformations will be able to step into a whole new realm. With a thought, Lin Yi did not hesitate at all and directly spent 1 million points to exchange for the sacred dragon blood essence. The number of points in Lin Ye's hands was once again less than 10,000. This made his heart ache, but he also understood that all of them were in the line of sight of the elders of Cebu Gakuen. No matter what they had done, those elders were clear about it. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the sacred dragon blood essence to be among the things he could exchange for after exchanging for the Ascending Dragon Transformation. Even a ghost would not believe that there was no ghost. After exchanging, Lin Yi let Yin Shihao and Shun Lingxiao help guard him while he brought Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul into the Sky Universe Pagoda. Although he only had 1 day to prepare, there was still plenty of time for them to cultivate in the Sky Universe Pagoda and the 9-layer space. The time ratio in the Sky Universe Pagoda was 8:1. Overlapping with the 9-layer space, 1 day was enough for them to cultivate for 256 days, nearly a year. The moment they entered the 9-layer space, Lin Yi swallowed the sacred dragon blood essence. In the next moment, the abundant medicinal power erupted, surging and wreaking havoc in Lin Ye's body. With a light snort, Lin Yi wrapped all the power in his mind and began to gradually absorb it. At the same time, Lin Yi took out the Ascending Dragon Transformation and began to cultivate. The Ascending Dragon Transformation was only an auxiliary cultivation technique and was not difficult to cultivate. In addition to the power of the sacred dragon blood essence, the Ascending Dragon Transformation was completed in 2 days. Next, Lin Yi began to merge the Ascending Dragon Transformation with the Divine Dragon 9 Transformations. The Divine Dragon 9 Transformations was extremely domineering. If not for the Ascending Dragon Transformation's gentleness, it would have exploded the moment it merged. Even so, it was extremely difficult to merge the Ascending Dragon Transformation with the Divine Dragon 9 Transformations. Fortunately, the Sacred Dragon Blood Essence had been playing its role. The merging of the Ascending Dragon Transformation with the Divine Dragon 9 Transformations was very harmonious, and there were no problems. Time flowed by little. Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul did not dare to waste any time. They each swallowed a pill and began to improve themselves. 1 month, 2 months, 5 months. As time passed, Lin Ye's aura reached the peak of 5th Tribulation Half-True Saint under the effect of the Sacred Dragon Blood Essence. The merging of the Ascending Dragon Transformation with the Divine Dragon 9 Transformations was also about to be completed. Roar! Lin Ye's body continuously emitted dragon roars. One after another, dragon shadows circled around Lin Ye's body, exuding an imposing aura. Roar, roar, roar. Suddenly, dozens of dragon shadows appeared at the same time, circling around Lin Yi and roaring towards the sky. The space was filled with dragon roars. At the same time, Lin Ye's aura surged like an erupting volcano, crazily rising. Peak 5th Tribulation Half-True Saint, early 6th Tribulation Half-True Saint, mid 6th Tribulation Half-True Saint, late 6th Tribulation Half-True Saint peak. That aura came with great momentum, and no bottleneck could stop it. In less than a dozen breaths' time, Lin Ye's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 7th Tribulation Half-True Saint realm. He was only a step away from reaching the 8th Tribulation Half-True Saint realm. Of course, if Lin Yi hadn't suppressed his cultivation, he would have entered the 9th Tribulation Half-True Saint realm a long time ago. In any case, his divine sense had already reached the Saint realm, and he had many methods to deal with saints. He was not anxious and only wanted to stabilize his foundation. But today, the merging of the Ascending Dragon Transformation with the Divine Dragon 9 Transformations made him unable to suppress his foundation, and he directly broke through to the peak of the 7th Tribulation Half-True Saint realm. In his heart, there were many more comprehensions of the Divine Dragon 9 Transformations, and with every move he made, he erupted with great power. This caused Lin Yi to be quite surprised. He had a feeling that he had become a dragon. Chapter 456. Under the stimulation of the Ascending Dragon Transformation and the Holy Dragon Blood Essence, Huang Xiaolon's comprehension of the 9 Divine Dragon Transformations had reached the level of the Annihilation Divine Dragon. Only 5 months had passed. Lin Yi stabilized his 9 Divine Dragon Transformations and began to cultivate the Heavenly Emperor Fist, Heaven Exterminating Finger, Sky Sword 12 styles, and other martial skills. Soon, another 3 months had passed. Exiting his cultivation state, Lin Yi woke Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul up and left the 9-layer space and sky pagoda. By this time, Shengwan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the others had returned. There was also a steady stream of new students coming in from outside. Although it was only a day's time, there were many of them. After spreading the news, many of the new students understood that they had to be united after entering the institute, and rushed back to contribute their strength. Of course, while the new students were preparing, the old students were also preparing. They had already prepared a foolproof plan. After these 256 days of cultivation, Lin Ye's cultivation had improved tremendously. Not only did he break through to the 7th Tribulation Half-True Saint realm, but his 9 Divine Dragon Transformations had also improved by leaps and bounds. His comprehension of the Heavenly Emperor Fist and Heaven Exterminating Finger had deepened. Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul had also improved greatly, especially Silent Soul. Knowing that Lin Yi could not divert his attention to protect her, she directly broke through to the 8th Tribulation half-true Saint Realm. In addition to her domain's power, although she could not help Lin Yi deal with those true saints, it was more than enough for her to protect herself. Sun Wuyu's sword domain had broken through the shackles, and he had comprehended an exclusive divine ability. His momentum was in high spirits, and the moment he stood up, sword intent surged. Shangguan Yunqi and the others had just returned and arrived in front of Lin Ye's group. They immediately sensed the changes in the three of them and couldn't help but frown. Sizing up the three of them, Shangguan Yunqi had a strange expression on his face. They were very flabbergasted. Why did Lin Ye's group of three give them such a great feeling in just one day? Especially Sun Wuyu. After comprehending the sword domain's divine ability, his entire person was filled with a sharp aura that instilled fear in others. You guys cultivated for a day, and there's such a change. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Dao Feiyong looked at Lin Ye's group of three with eyes full of surprise. It was just a day of cultivation, and the change was so great. What kind of talent was this? Don't make a fuss. Lin Yi waved his hand and asked softly, "What's the situation outside? How many freshmen have come?" "Another 2,000 people have come," Shangguan Yunqi said excitedly. "Apart from those who are seriously injured, almost 80% of the people are here. There are also some people that we didn't manage to contact or are unwilling to join us. There are also a few hundred freshmen who colluded with the older students." Speaking of this, Dao Feiyong squinted his eyes. Sharp Sword Chi rose, full of killing intent. "Wait until I enter the academy. I'll make them regret it. Everyone has their own choices," Lin Yi said indifferently. "If they want to be with the older students, then let them be. We don't need to care too much." I'm just looking down on them," Dao Feiyong said. "Some of them have nothing to do with the older students. They're just begging someone to bring them to the older students' camp. Those fence-sitters, I'll beat them up whenever I see them." Phew! Lin Yi did not continue Dao Feiyong's words. He glanced at the crowd and whispered, "There are about 6,000 of us. It shouldn't be too much of a problem to deal with 200 of them. Some of the older students were seriously injured by me. They probably haven't recovered yet. So, we're not under too much pressure." "Lin Yi, don't worry," Shangguan Yunqi said. "You don't have to worry about the rest. We'll definitely stop them. As long as you can defeat Tai Yu and Tai Yi, everything will be settled." "All right," Lin Yi nodded slightly and said, "Then I'll leave the rest to you brothers." When they heard Lin Yi call them brother, the hearts of everyone present started to boil. Originally, they did not have any thoughts about this alliance. They were more concerned about protecting their own points. They only had the same goal. But when a person called them brothers, full of emotions, everyone's hearts were filled with excitement, and their emotions were gradually rising. "Ha ha! With so many brothers fighting together with me, what's there to be afraid of?" Shangguan Yunqi laughed heartily. "Today, it is my honor to be able to face these seniors together with my brothers. Even if I lose, I won't regret it. I'm Mui too. Even if I lose, it's still a glorious defeat. At least, we fought side by side with our brothers. Fight, fight, fight." Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest's emotions were quickly transmitted. In an instant, the entire camp, more than 5,000 people, were infected. They all raised their hands and roared. In their hearts, battle intent rose, and their eyes were bloodshot. Lin Yi saw this scene and felt very gratified. He did not even doubt that if the older students suddenly appeared in front of them, this group of people would definitely rush forward. "Ha ha ha! Since all of you want to fight, let's go." Proud laughter rang out. Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the rest looked at each other and immediately led the group into the distance. After yesterday's investigation, they already knew where that group of seniors lived. Obviously, that was the place where the final battle would take place. However, after a few steps, a figure quietly appeared in front of Lin Yi and the rest. Lin Yi's footsteps suddenly stopped. His eyes were immediately attracted by the figure. It was a huge white tiger. Its fur was shiny, and its sharp teeth were dripping with saliva. Its bell-sized eyes were filled with killing intent. On the white tiger, a young girl sat sideways. Her two slender legs swayed, shining in everyone's eyes. A pair of slender hands played with a bamboo flute. Her cheeks were like that of a saintess from the ninth heaven. She was quite calm and gave off an otherworldly feeling. For a moment, all of the new students, including Sun Wuyu, Yin Shihao, and Shun Lingxiao, were stunned. Too beautiful. If Silent Soul's beauty was flirtatious, then Qing Yu's beauty was pure and soul-stirring. Qing Yu, looking at the girl, Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Immediately, Lin Yi turned his head to look at Shangguan Yunqi. According to Shangguan Yunqi, this girl was a lone ranger. She should not be here. Shangguan Yunqi was also stunned. After a moment, he took a step forward and asked curiously, Miss Qing Yu, why are you here? As a new student, why can't I be here? Qing Yu's voice was very clear, like that of an oriole. In a split second, all of the new students were stunned again and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The two brothers, Tai Yu and Tai Yi, are very strong. It will be difficult to deal with them alone. Chapter 457. Although Qing Yue's words were not pleasant to hear, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest were still rather touched. Qing Yue had always been a lone ranger previously and rarely moved together with them. This time, before the final battle, Qing Yue chose to be with them. It could be seen that their actions also obtained Qing Yue's approval. More importantly, Qing Yue's strength was formidable and had the ability to command demonic beasts. Disregarding other things, just that white tiger alone had strength no less than Mu Yi and the rest. Lin Yi naturally would not refuse Qing Yue joining. He immediately said with a smile, Welcome, Miss Qing Yue. Welcome, Miss Qing Yue. Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and the rest welcomed Qing Yue together. At the same time, many freshmen heard Qing Yue's name and immediately woke up at the start. Hiss! This is the Qing Yue who had always been ranked third previously. So strong, a woman actually always stabilized the ranking. Really too strong. Forget about being strong. She's also so beautiful. Growing up, apart from that fairy Xuanji, I've never seen such a beautiful person before. For a time, many freshmen kept discussing in low voices. Their words were full of admiration. In their view, those able to rank at the top of the Spirit Hunter list were all men. They did not expect that Qing Yue was such a beautiful woman. Towards everyone's welcome and discussion, Qing Yue's expression did not change, as if she did not hear it. She just silently watched Lin Yi. She did not know about Lin Yi's deeds. At first, she thought that it was Shangguan Yunqi and the rest leading. But just now, Lin Yi was the first to welcome her and control everything, making her surprised. This careful sizing up, Qing Yue could not help revealing a look of surprise. She unexpectedly discovered that with her middle stage Saint realm, she actually could not see through Lin Yi's depths. She could only vaguely sense Lin Yi's realm and was completely unaware of the rest. Sensing further, her entire person trembled with fear. It was as if Lin Yi's body contained a deity, making her not dare to offend. Your strength is very special. With you around, maybe we can really break the record. Finished speaking, Qing Yue closed both eyes and no longer spoke. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others looked at each other, not understanding what Qing Yue meant. Shrugging his shoulders, Lin Yi waved his right hand and immediately led the group towards the gathering place of the older students. Passing by Qing Yue, the white tiger slowly got up and followed beside Lin Yi and the others. Actually, at the very beginning, Qing Yue didn't want to come. In her opinion, they had cultivated for so many years less. Under the situation where the difference in talent wasn't great, it was very difficult for them to contend against those senior students. But later on, Shangguan Yunqi and the others completely stirred up the emotions of most of the freshmen. Even Qing Yue was shocked by them. Therefore, Qingyu wanted to help them. After all, she was also a part of the new students. Only after arriving here did Qingyu discover that Lin Yi was unusual. For a moment, she had a trace of confidence in them. What if he succeeded? When Qingyu arrived, the many new students became increasingly excited. They sang loudly and soon arrived at the area where the older students were. Before the person arrived, his voice was already heard. That loud and clear voice caused all the seniors to be stunned. Sucking in a breath of cold air, the seniors looked at each other. These freshmen, are they really that confident? Among the seniors, there were a few people sitting in the middle. Their faces were filled with astonishment. In terms of individual strength, UNMO was fully deserving of the title of number one. He sat in the middle. Glancing at them, UNMO said indifferently, "Those people are very weak. Don't worry too much. Right now, they are so happy because they see the hope and dawn of victory. As long as you could destroy their alliance, they will immediately cry." Hearing this, the others looked at UNMO with strange expressions. They all knew of UNMO's strength. Therefore, when they learned that UNMO had also been defeated, their first reaction was disbelief. But after knowing that it was the truth, their feelings towards UNMO became much stranger. Especially the two brothers, Tai Yu and Tai Yi. They had never met a strong new student before, so they did not know of Lin Ye's strength. After learning that UNMO had been defeated, they were disdainful of him. If it weren't for the fact that it was the last day and they were about to have a decisive battle with all the freshmen, they would even mock and ridicule UNMO, their alliance. Tai Yu sneered. Tai Yu suddenly sneered. UNMO, is that so-called number one on the hunting spirit list really that powerful? In a short 15 days, he broke through to the late stage, Saint Realm? It can't be, right? No matter how hard he suppressed it, it's impossible for him to break through 3 realms in such a short time, right? Hearing Tai Yu's words, everyone was astonished. Those who knew of Lin Ye's cultivation realm had a strange expression on their faces. They were ashamed and did not dare to say Lin Ye's cultivation realm. Lin Ye's cultivation realm was too low. If they said that they had lost to a 5th tribulation half-true saint, it would be too shameful. UNMO was the same. Hearing the ridicule in Tai Yu's words, he laughed and said, "Wait until Lin Yi arrives, you will know." Today, I'll leave Lin Yi to you two brothers." Tai Yi snorted and said solemnly, "We two brothers will definitely kill that so-called number one on the spear hunter list." As soon as his words fell, the sound of footsteps resounded. Tai Yu and Tai Yi immediately stood up and looked over. They couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air. A black mass of people was surging toward them. Although they were not strong, the visual impact made them feel incomparably shocked. The pressure in their hearts loosened. So many new students. It was the first time some of the older students saw so many people, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Fear rose in their hearts. In the past, there were only about 1,000 new students who passed, but this time, there were 10,000 people. The shock was too great. "What are you afraid of?" Tai Yu and Tai Yi sneered. "The more people there are, the more points we can get. They're just a bunch of ants. Each of you can deal with dozens or hundreds of people. Don't worry. I want to see how strong their alliance is. They can actually defeat UNMO." Speaking of this, the two of them glanced at UNMO again. Right at this moment, Lin Yi, Shengguan Yunxi, and the others arrived before Tai Yu, Tai Yi, and the other senior students. In a split second, the whole space froze, and a biting cold air filled the air. Everyone looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with biting, cold battle intent. Flames rose as if they would erupt at any time. Chapter 458. Your Lin Yi? Tai Yu sized up Lin Yi, and the corners of his mouth twitched. His eyes were filled with disbelief. A mere peak 7th tribulation half-true saint had defeated so many true saints, and even earned the praise of a peak true saint like UNMO. This was too unbelievable. If Tai Yu knew that Lin Yi was only a 5th tribulation half-true saint when he defeated UNMO, he would probably cry. This kid, how did he break through so quickly? UNMO looked at Lin Yi in shock, and a frown appeared on his face. When they met yesterday, Lin Yi was only a fifth tribulation half-true saint. In just a day, he had broken through to the peak of the seventh tribulation half-true saint realm. What shocked him even more was that Lin Yi had the strength to defeat him when he was only a fifth tribulation half-true saint. Now, that Lin Yi was at the peak of the seventh tribulation half-true saint realm. Wouldn't it be easier for him to defeat him? He was clear about Tai Yu and Tai Yi's strength. Even though they were slightly stronger than him, it wasn't by much. Thinking of this, an ominous premonition appeared in Yuan Mo's heart. Could it be that Lin Yi could really defeat Tai Yu and Tai Yi and lead this batch of new students to create a miracle? Yuan Mo's eyes darted around, and he suddenly took a few steps back. That's right. Lin Yi took a step forward and said indifferently, "I am Lin Yi. You two are birdmen?" Tai Yu and Tai Yi's faces sank as soon as they heard Huang Xiaolong's words. Many of the new students laughed out loud with a poochie sound. Some of the older students couldn't hold back their laughter, and they started laughing as well. Tai Yu and Tai Yi's saint artifacts were a pair of wings. They were extremely powerful, and it was because of this that they had changed their names. Usually, many of the older students want to call them that, but they didn't dare because they were too weak. Now that Lin Yi called them that, everyone burst into laughter. Who's laughing? An angry roar sounded, and the laughter of the older students stopped abruptly. Tai Yu and Tai Yi leaped into the air, and a pair of azure wings appeared on their backs. As they flapped slowly, the space around them began to tremble. Powerful holy aura spread out, and it pressed down on Lin Yi's group. Hiss, holy aura as is a mountain. The new students' chests as they felt, and their breaths were heavy. Insignificant skill. Lin Yi took a step forward and unleashed his 5 elemental territory, dissipating much of the saint aura. Seeing Lin Yi attack, Sun Wuyu, Shangwan Yinshi, Mu Yi, Dao Feiyang, and Qin Yu all attacked. For a time, the sharp sword Qi, the saber glow, the strong presence of life, and the roar of a tiger suddenly shattered the sacred aura shrouding the crowd. Especially Lin Yi. They weren't surprised that the others could cause damage to his holy aura. After all, most of them had broken through to the mid-stage saint realm. Being able to break through to the mid-stage saint realm in 15 days showed how high their talent was. It wasn't strange for them to have such strength. But Lin Yi was able to disperse their holy aura with his 7 tribulation half-true saint cultivation. That was shocking. It was as if a small ant had shaken a huge mountain. It was unbelievable. Birdmen are indeed birdmen. Lin Yi grinned, and he glanced at the 2 brothers' wings and said coldly, "Flashing your wings in a fight, aren't you afraid that people will shoot you down like birds? I heard that roasted bird meat tastes good." Hearing this, the anger in Tai Yu and Tai Yi's hearts was completely ignited. At this time, they finally understood that Lin Yi wanted to provoke them on purpose so that they would act rashly. Phew, I must calm down. They're provoking me like this. They're definitely plotting something. Tai Yu and Tai Yi took deep breaths, and it took them a lot of effort to suppress their anger. Just as they were about to speak, Lin Yi interrupted them. TSK, brothers, how did you break through to the peak saint realm when you're so cowardly? Can you share some of your experience with us? Lin Yi suddenly revealed a smile. Could it be that you've been cowardly the entire time? You poo. At this time, Tai Yu and Tai Yi couldn't hold it in anymore, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. This scene made everyone's hair stand on end. UNMO was also stunned. He had seen Lin Yi's coldness and strength, but he didn't expect Lin Yi to be so good at insulting others. Not to mention UNMO, Sun Wuyu, Silent Soul, and the others were also stunned. Bastard! The 2 brothers, Tai Yu and Tai Yi, were so infuriated by Lin Yi that they were about to die. No longer enduring, they waved their hands and roared. "Brothers, kill them for me. Kill these bastards for me." Amidst the roars, many seniors felt a chill in their hearts. They didn't dare to go against Tai Yu and Tai Yi's words, and they all charged forward. "Kill!" Shangguan Yunqi was about to wave his hand, but he was stopped by Lin Yi. "Don't be in a hurry to charge forward. I'll prepare an appetizer for them." Lin Ye's lips curled up, and his eyes flickered. Seeing the strange look in Lin Ye's eyes, Shangguan Yunqi frowned and put down his hand. He was quite curious. Not only was Shangguan Yunqi curious, but the other freshmen were also curious when they saw that Lin Yi didn't let them attack. "Kill." However, the seniors wouldn't give up just because Lin Yi didn't make a move. Amidst the chilling roars, countless attacks mixed with the power of saint artifacts and domains surged forward. When he raised his head to take a look, he saw that the attacks seemed to cover the sky and land. They were like meteors falling from the sky, giving off an extremely strong pressure. In an instant, the freshmen's faces turned serious. They were even more curious as to why Lin Yi didn't let them attack. "Ha ha, I'll let you have a taste of what I've specially prepared for you." Amidst his laughter, Lin Yi suddenly swung his right hand. In an instant, countless objects flew out. There were all kinds of objects, and under Lin Yi's enormous strength, they were all sent flying. Seeing those objects, everyone was incomparably shocked. They focused their attention on them, but they didn't find anything special. Only a few seniors frowned. They felt that those objects looked familiar. "Not good." Suddenly, Yuan Mo exclaimed and hurriedly retreated a few steps. Bang, bang, bang. In the next moment, those objects collided with the attacks. Amidst the loud explosion, a shockwave spread out. As the shockwave spread out, streaks of colorful lights also quietly rippled out. "What's that?" Seeing those lights, many seniors were bewildered and couldn't help but pause for a moment. However, the moment they paused, countless rays of light rose up and formed hundreds of arrays at lightning speed. Rumble! Once the arrays were formed, countless attacks erupted. Some were lightning, some were blazing flames, some were strong winds, some were trembling the earth, some were blowing ice. Mournful screams suddenly echoed in the air. Chapter 459. Mournful screams suddenly rang out, reverberating in the air, incessantly ringing in the ears, one after another. In the sky, several elders, palace masters, Fairy Xuanji, and the rest were all stunned as they stared blankly at the scene below. Phew! I was wondering why this little guy was acting so strangely and angered Tai Yu so many times. So he had this trick up his sleeve. An elder stroked his beard and exclaimed in admiration. With hundreds of formations erupting at the same time, even Tai Yu and Tai Yi, those two little fellows, would suffer some injuries. This way, their chances of winning will be much higher. Indeed, a rather young palace master nodded slightly. This little guy is very creative. What's even more shocking is that his treasures and martial skills are endless, and all of them are extremely powerful. To be able to defeat a pinnacle saint as a half-saint, although Yuan Ma was injured at that time, it's still shocking. His talent might not be inferior to Lord. At this point, everyone fell silent. However, Fairy Xuanji opened her mouth and said, "The power of his divine will is very strong. In my opinion, he's already a divine will saint. That's why he could defeat a saint as a half-saint." Fairy Xuanji had high attainments in divine perception. Therefore, after observing Lin Yi for a short period of time, she was able to see through him. "I see. Hiss. No wonder he can fight across so many levels. He's already a divine will saint. However, he can defeat a pinnacle saint without using the techniques of a divine will saint. This shows that his talent can't be underestimated. After the hunting war ends, we must report this to Lord." Phew, I have to say that many good seedlings have appeared this year. Looks like Cebu Gakuen is going to be lively again. There's going to be a huge change. All right, let's continue watching. The voices gradually faded. Those figures were hidden in the clouds, high and mighty. Following their gazes, one could vaguely see countless arrays exploding. Wind and snow wreaked havoc, lightning surged, and blazing flames exploded. That space was like purgatory on Earth. Although the strength of those seniors wasn't weak, a single formation wouldn't be able to harm them at all. But at this moment, hundreds of formations were activated at the same time, and they were all saint-level formations. Coupled with the coordination between the elements, the power of the formation increased exponentially. In just a short span of a dozen breaths, the older students were unable to bear it any longer. Shrill screams rang out incessantly. Even Tai Yu, and the others had solemn expressions as they continuously suppressed the power of the formation. Hiss, no wonder Lin Yi didn't let us go. It turns out that he had prepared so many formations. Heavens, how did Lin Yi do it? So many saint-grade formations. Did he bring them for his family? That's strange. I don't remember the Yi clan existing among the first-rank clans. To be able to take out so many formations, his clan must not be weak. How could he not be a first-rank clan? Seeing this scene, many of the new students were incomparably shocked in their hearts, and they started to guess Lin Yi's identity. However, they did not know that Lin Yi was just a kid who came from a desolate place in their eyes. Too powerful. If that's the case, doesn't it mean that our chances of winning have increased by a lot? Ah, that's right. Perhaps this time, we can really accomplish a magnificent feat. Many of the new students' faces were filled with excitement. It seemed that victory was already in their hands. Shangwan Yunxi, Mu Yi, and Dao Feiyong looked at Lin Yi in a daze. This time, they were completely convinced by Lin Yi. Originally, they only wanted to call enough people to fight to the death with those seniors. They did not expect that a fight to the death could come up with so many tricks. Qinghua looked at Lin Yi with a different expression. Amidst the astonishment, there was a trace of curiosity. Rumble. The formation did not care what everyone was thinking. Once it was activated, it would only attack crazily. Accompanied by the rumbling sound, many of the seniors continued to withstand the attacks, just like before when Lin Yi was struck by endless lightning. However, Lin Yi had the 9 cauldrons to absorb the lightning for him. But these seniors could only use their own bodies to absorb the damage. Not far away, UNMO rejoiced endlessly. Fortunately, he ran quickly before and was not sucked into the formation. Seeing this scene, his entire scalp tingled. No matter how strong one was, being attacked by hundreds of formations continuously would also exhaust one. If there was a time when one did not block, it was normal to be injured. Damn it! Everyone attacked together. After a long time, the two brothers Tai and Tai Yu were enraged. Finally, they forced the formation to the side and roared out. With the two of them taking the lead, the seniors who were originally like a plate of loose sand suddenly had a backbone, and the panic in their hearts gradually dissipated. Attack together with me. Accompanied by the angry roars, the wings behind the two brothers Tai Yu and Tai Yi vibrated. All the wings were erected, flickering with a cold light. Wing blade. Tai Yu and Tai Yi tilted their bodies slightly, flapped their wings, and suddenly flew up. Their sharp wings slanted to the side. Slash! Almost in an instant, the wings and blades collided with the formation. The sharp aura contained in the sharp wings suddenly pierced through the formation. Crack! A crisp sound rang out, and in the next moment, cracks appeared on the formation one after another. Rumble! Then, the seniors' attacks came one after another, constantly colliding with the formation. In this way, the formation could no longer hold on. Accompanied by crisp sounds, the formation's light screen suddenly shattered with a loud bang. The hundreds of formations were finally destroyed by Tai Yu and Tai Yi. Hearing the crisp sound, Tai Yu, Tai Yi, and the seniors all breathed a long sigh of relief, and their expressions became much more relaxed. At this moment, except for a few late-stage saints, there were not many injuries on their bodies. The middle stage saints were all dripping with blood and looked particularly miserable. Almost half of their strength had been exhausted. They had just taken a few breaths when the seniors thought that they would have to fight with thousands of new students and their expressions immediately became ugly and gloomy. However, the new students rubbed their fists and revealed cheerful smiles. Originally, there were so many of them, and they had the upper hand against the seniors. Now that they were all injured, it was even easier to deal with them. They were very happy to be able to give the seniors a good beating and contribute to everyone. Tai Yu and Tai Yi were not fools, and they quickly understood this point. Their eyes were filled with anger as they looked at Lin Yi. Chapter 460. Since they were able to break through to the peak of the Saint Realm, they weren't idiots. Tai Yu and Tai Yi quickly recovered from their shock. Earlier, Lin Yi had infuriated them for the sake of making them attack. Now, Lin Yi's plan had succeeded, and it had shockingly weakened their strength greatly. At this moment, they didn't dare attack rashly. If the others were injured and defeated, allowing the new students to free themselves up, then even if they possessed the strength to defeat Lin Yi, they would still lose in the end. Even if they were peak saints, it was impossible for them to face a few thousand half-saints and saints at the same time. After all, this was a trial, and they couldn't kill. Once the number of opponents reached a certain level, it would be a threat to them, and it was even more serious under the circumstances that they were shackled. When they thought up to here, Tai Yu and Tai Yi exchanged glances and nodded lightly. They immediately decided that they absolutely couldn't involve too many people in the upcoming battle. We saw that Tai Yu and Tai Yi still hadn't attacked. Lin Yi chuckled instead. What's wrong? Are the two of you afraid now? Why don't the two of you continue to admit defeat? Let us new students see exactly how the two of you cowered to the peak of the Saint Realm. Ha ha ha. As soon as he finished speaking, all the new students roared with laughter. You. In an instant, Tai Yi's face was livid, and he couldn't help but take a step forward and point his finger at Lin Yi. His eyes were filled with flames of rage, and he seemed like a ferocious beast that was about to swallow its prey. Tai Yu pulled Tai Yi back, and then he stared fixedly at Lin Yi. He was most afraid that Lin Yi still had a formation in his possession. If that was really the case, then it would be very difficult for them to resist if a battle broke out. Because once someone from Lin Yi's side kept the two of them busy, then it would be very difficult for the other senior students to break through the joint formation. Compared to Tai Yi, Tai Yu's temper was much better, and his thoughts were much more meticulous. Tai Yi took a deep breath and said coldly, Lin Yi, do you dare make a bet with me if you have the courage? A bet? Hearing this, Lin Yi could not help but raise his eyebrows and look at Tai Yu in surprise. Lin Yi was quite surprised. At this time, many people were thinking about how to break out of this situation. He didn't expect that Tai Yu would actually think of a bet. However, Lin Yi also understood that the gambling fight was Iron Feather's way of breaking the situation. As long as Lin Yi agreed to Tai Yu's request, then the trap that Lin Yi had set up for him earlier would all be useless. However, Lin Yi was not afraid at all. Even without setting up a trap, I can still suppress you. Lin Yi's eyes turned cold as he asked, What kind of bet? A bet. Hearing the conversation between Lin Yi and Tai Yu, everyone present frowned and fell into deep thought. They simply didn't understand why the topic of the battle was suddenly brought up. Only a few people suddenly realized and immediately stared closely at Lin Yi and Tai Yu. They really want to know what method Lin Yi and Tai Yu would use to decide the fate of this group of people. Taking a deep breath, Tai Yu said in a deep voice, Let's make a bet directly. If we fight like this, there will be too many people and it will be too messy. It will take too much time. Moreover, if we are not careful, there will be casualties. Let's make a bet. Each of us will send out some people to fight in the arena. Whichever side won the most matches would be the winner. How about it? Oh, hearing this, Lin Yi's eyebrows raised slightly. The rest of the new students revealed terrified expressions. Senior Lin Yi, you can't do this. In terms of individual strength, they definitely have the advantage. Now that most of them are injured, we can't be fooled. Some of the new students directly shouted out. Only Shangwan Yunxi, Mu Yi, and a group of people with higher talent sank into deep thought. In fact, whether it was time or other aspects, The bet was the most perfect, as long as the best plan could be formulated. After all, the average strength of the new students was lower than the older students. To make the new students agree to the bet, the older students must make some concessions. Huh. Rolling his eyes, Lin Yi said indifferently, "Don't you think that this is too shameless? You are all older students, and your realms are higher than us. Now that you're injured and there is no hope of a group battle, you want to make a bet?" Cough, cough. Coughing awkwardly, Taiyu said, "Since you are new students, two of you can fight together to deal with one of us. However, my brother and I are one, so we have to fight together. If you have a group, you can also fight with 3 people. How about it?" Following Taiyu's words, the voices of the many new students suddenly became much softer. In their view, if they were not a match 1-on-1, it did not mean that they were not a match 2-on-1. Each of the geniuses on the Spear Hunter list had the strength to contend with the older students. Therefore, they were not afraid. Lin Yi pondered for a moment, nodded slightly, and agreed. "All right then. In that case, how many matches will there be? How many battles?" 5. Taiyu grinned and said, "We will send a total of 6 people here. 5 matches. You can send 10 people." "Okay." Lin Yi nodded and shouted in a deep voice, "Sun Wuyu, Shangguan Yinshi, Qin Yue, Dao Feiyang Muyi, Yin Shihao, Shun Ling Xiao, and Mo Yiming, Chen Kaixian, step forward." After a day of contact, Lin Yi had long figured out everyone's strength and immediately chose the 9 strongest people. Shun Kuyi, Zhao Tianhai. Taiyu's eyes turned and began to hesitate who to send out. In their group, many people were hiding their strength. He could not determine who was stronger and who was weaker. "Feng Wulin," as the voice sounded, 3 late-stage Saint powerhouses stood out. Their faces were solemn as they stared closely at Shangguan Yunshi and the others. After the baptism of Lin Ye's array formation just now, this group of older students could be said to be wary of them to the extreme. Like birds startled by the twang of a bow. There was only one spot left. Taiyu and Tai Yi could not be chosen. As far as they were concerned, the remaining people were not that strong. "If it's the last spot, leave it to me." Right at this time, UNMO, who had been hiding at the back, quietly stood out. Whoosh! In a split second, all the freshmen were stunned. They immediately glared at UNMO. They all knew that UNMO's strength was unparalleled. Apart from Lin Yi, anyone who faced him would be defeated. Damn it! This guy was released by us yesterday. He actually has the face to attack today. Bastard! To think that Lin Yi hasn't made a move against him yet. For a moment, many freshmen cursed at UNMO, Shangguan Yunshi, Muyi, and the others who had seen UNMO's prowess also fell silent. They were extremely wary of UNMO in their hearts. But UNMO did not pay attention to those freshmen. He just sized up Lin Yi with interest. This time, the majority of the older students were injured. Their strength was not at their peak. If by any chance the freshmen counterattacked, causing them to lose the last match without even fighting, that would be boring. Chapter 461. Taiyu's brows furrowed. He stared at UNMO for a moment and suddenly sighed. At this moment, apart from UNMO, there was no one else among them. Moreover, UNMO was stronger than the 2 of them in a 1-on-1 fight. It could be said that he was a stable winner. UNMO, don't disappoint us. Tai Yi sneered. Don't worry. You may lose, but I won't lose. UNMO's expression was indifferent. He did not put Taiyu and Tai Yi in his eyes at all. Tai Yi was furious in his heart. Just as he was about to attack, he was stopped by Taiyu. At this time, we are united against outsiders. Don't complicate matters. Taiyu fiercely glared at Tai Yi. Only then did Tai Yi lower his head. But in his heart, he was especially angry at UNMO's first match. Zhao Tianhai, you go. As his voice fell, a tall and thin man walked into everyone's line of sight. That tall and thin man's aura surged. The aura of a late-stage saint completely erupted, giving people an extremely strong sense of oppression. Lin Yi glanced at him and directly let Muyi and Yin Shihao go on stage together. Muyi's defensive ability and recovery ability were astonishing. Yin Shihao had fierce offensive ability. The two of them together, the power that they displayed absolutely could not be underestimated. Lin Ye's plan was beautiful. Unfortunately, he neglected one point. No matter how amazing defensive ability was, it was only against those of the same rank. Zhao Tianhai was not someone who had just stepped into the late Saint realm. Although Muyi and Yin Shihao cooperated well, under his continuous and powerful attacks, Muyi wasn't able to block them, let alone Yin Shihao's attacks. In just a quarter of an hour, Muyi and Yin Shihao were defeated. In an instant, the faces of many freshmen turned gloomy. Their faces were especially ugly. Muyi and Yin Shihao were incomparably guilty in their hearts. They did not dare to look at others. Lowering their heads, they returned to Lin Ye's side. Muyi and Yin Shihao did not dare to say a word. Many of the new students sighed. They looked at Muyi and Yin Shihao with eyes full of resentment. This was only the first match, and they had lost. It really made them uncomfortable. In stark contrast to the new students, it was the older students. The older students, who were originally lifeless, became lively at this moment. Especially Shen Kuyi and Feng Wulin, they both let out a long sigh of relief. Originally, they thought that everyone was like Lin Yi and had super freakish strength. From the looks of it, dealing with them was quite easy. Boss Iron Feather, leave this match to me. Feng Wulin was full of confidence and recommended himself. Taiyu raised his eyebrows and glanced at Lin Yi. Seeing Lin Yi's indifferent expression, Taiyu nodded and said, "Then you go. If you can't win, admit your guilt when you return to the academy." I'll definitely win." Grinning, Feng Wulin's figure flashed and arrived in the middle. He shouted boldly, "I'm Feng Wulin. Who dares to fight me?" Arrogant. Shangwan Yunqi, Dao Feiyong, and the others were enraged. They rushed forward together. Seeing this, the corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched, but he did not stop the two of them. Lin Yi knew that after Muyi's defeat, Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong would definitely avenge him. If he stopped them, it would not be good. Perhaps, under the influence of anger, Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong would be able to explode with more power. In this battle, Feng Wulin did not put Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong in his eyes. In addition, Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong attacked in anger. Almost at the beginning of the battle, Feng Wulin was forced into a disadvantageous position. By the time Feng Wulin realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. Shangwan Yunqi's strength was already very strong. Coupled with the supreme sacred weapon, his attacks were continuous. Dao Feiyong's attacks were as violent as thunder. The two of them formed a strong attack, forcing Feng Wulin to constantly dodge. Otherwise, he would be seriously injured. As a result, Feng Wulin was unable to adjust his condition. After dodging for a while, Feng Wulin despaired. He knew that if he continued to dodge, he would lose. He clenched his teeth and chose to resist Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong's attacks, so that he could adjust his condition. However, he had overestimated his defensive ability. Almost at the same time that Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong's attacks landed on his body, a violent force like thunder suddenly flooded his meridians. In the next moment, the lightning suddenly exploded. The impact from the inside out caused Feng Wulin to vomit blood and faint. Trash! Seeing this scene, Taiyu and Tai Yi could not help but curse. Just now, Feng Wulin had made a solemn vow. Who would have thought that in less than a quarter of an hour on the stage, he would be defeated before Muyi and Yin Shihao could last as long as he did? The smiles on the faces of the seniors suddenly froze. The freshmen cheered wildly, shouting Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong's names. Shangwan Yunqi and Dao Feiyong quickly returned to Muyi's side and began to comfort Muyi and Yin Shihao. With victory, Muyi and Dao Feiyong's emotions gradually stabilized. However, the remaining people who were going to participate in the battle became nervous. The third match, Shun Kuyi, you go, Taiyu suddenly called out. Shun Kuyi swallowed a mouthful of saliva, rather nervous as he walked to the center. Carefully sizing up Shun Kuyi, Lin Yi discovered that his realm was about the same as Zhao Tianhai from before. His brows turned, and he looked at UNMO. After Shun Kuyi finished, only UNMO and Tai Yu remained. The two brothers combined were stronger than UNMO, so they could only leave it to Lin Yi to deal with. And UNMO's strength was even more ridiculously strong. Lin Yi didn't know how strong Qingyue was, but he didn't dare to take the risk. If Qingyue, Sun Wuyu, and the others attacked UNMO together and lost, then it would be troublesome. Therefore, Lin Yi decided to let the two weakest people deal with UNMO and the other three deal with Shun Kuyi. This way, Shun Kuyi would definitely lose. Even if he lost to UNMO in the next match, it would be a tie of 2-2. Thinking of this, Lin Yi immediately said, Qingyue, Sun Wuyu, Shun Lingxiao, the three of you go. Deal with him. 3 people? Hearing this, Sun Wuyu, Shun Lingxiao, and the others were surprised. Brother Lin, that UNMO is the strongest. Why don't we use 3 people to deal with him? Soon, Shangwan Yinqi, Mo Yiming, and Chen Kaixian asked in confusion. All the freshmen also looked at Lin Yi in surprise. Most of them knew that UNMO was strong, so when they saw that Lin Yi wanted to use 3 people to deal with Shun Kuyi and 2 to deal with UNMO, they were puzzled. This was taking the initiative to lose. Chapter 462. Gulp. The sound of gulping could be heard. Everyone, including the older students, looked at UNMO with a look of shock. When UNMO made his move, everyone was watching carefully. They didn't see the lightning strike Chen Kaixian and Mo Yiming. However, after the lightning disappeared, Chen Kaixian and Mo Yiming fell to the ground unconscious. It was shocking. The older students were still okay. They had seen UNMO's many moves. At most, they were surprised. As for the new students, they were in complete despair. They did not dare to have any hope. Well, there was no hope. Chen Kaixian and Mo Yiming were unconscious. They had already lost. These 5 battles had finally come to the final round. After defeating Chen Kaixian and Mo Yiming, UNMO did not leave. Instead, he stared at Lin Yi. Lin Yi, this move is called Lightning Flint. I came up with it with the help of a Saint-tier martial skill. When I complete it and break through the shackles of the domain, I will challenge you again. After saying that, UNMO laughed loudly and turned to leave. Interesting. Looking at UNMO's back, Lin Yi could not help but smile. One had to admit that UNMO was extremely talented. That move was extremely fast. Even Lin Yi did not see it clearly, let alone know the principle behind it. Originally, Lin Yi thought that it was some Saint-tier martial skill. He did not expect UNMO to come up with it himself. After he thoroughly studied it, that move might be even stronger. Looks like my days in Cebu Gakuen will be very interesting. With a light smile, Lin Yi quickly waved his hand and sent people to carry Chen Kaixian and the others back. Right now, Chen Kaixian and the others still had lightning in their bodies. If he did not save them, it might cause permanent damage to their bodies. Raising his head to look, Lin Yi instead discovered that the 2 brothers, Tai Yu and Tai Yi, had extremely solemn expressions. This surprised Lin Yi quite a bit. UNMO clearly won just now and helped them reach the final round. Why were their expressions so ugly? SSS. Look at them. It seems like UNMO has a grudge with them. This is going to be fun. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. He quickly thought of this point. Tai Yu and Tai Yi's faces turned green. Recalling UNMO's move, they felt a chill run down their backs. They did not see that move clearly. They only felt a violent surge of energy that was instantly annihilated in the next moment. They had always been at odds with UNMO. UNMO. Seeing that Tai Yu and Tai Yi were immersed in fear, Lin Yi coughed lightly and suddenly woke them up. This is the last battle. With an indifferent expression, Lin Yi stepped forward and said indifferently, "It seems like it's time to begin." Humph. Yeezus, are you? No need to say so much. The corner of Tai Yu's mouth twitched when he saw that Tai Yi was about to continue speaking. He hurriedly interrupted Tai Yi, took a few steps forward, and arrived in front of the forest. Tai Yi did not know why, but when he looked at Lin Yi before the battle began, an ominous premonition emerged in his heart. Phew! Tai Yi sighed and said in a low voice, "This is the last battle. I will defeat you." As soon as he finished speaking, the wings on Tai Yu's back trembled. Whoosh! 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 The feathers on his wings stood up straight and flashed coldly. Seeing this, Tai Yi parted his mouth and revealed a cruel smile. He also extended his wings. Instantly, chi surged out of Tai Yu and Tai Yi's bodies. Lin Yi narrowed his eyes and stared at the two pairs of wings. At the very beginning, when Tai Yu and Tai Yi used the wing blades to break the formation, he had already observed the two pairs of wings. Lin Yi could feel that the two pairs of wings contained a powerful force. It was not something that Tai Yu and Tai Yi possessed, but something that was borrowed from them. Therefore, Lin Yi was confident that as long as he cut off the connection between the two pairs of wings in them, he could defeat them easily. Squinting his eyes, Lin Yi's shoulders trembled as the Supreme Saint armor covered his entire body, protecting him. The wings were extremely sharp. They could even cut through hundreds of arrays, let alone his body. Lin Yi did not dare to underestimate Tai Yu and Tai Yi. He was fully armed. Roar! A dragon's roar rang out. In the next moment, Lin Yi's body became much stronger. Blood chi burst out from his muscles. He looked like a dragon twisting around his body. A violent force was contained in every inch of Lin Yi's skin. This was the first time Lin Yi experienced the power of the divine dragon of Nirvana. He was shocked. This force was really powerful. If his divine will had not reached the divine sage level, he would not have been able to withstand such a transformation with just his physical body. The blazing crimson flame appeared. When it came into contact with Lin Yi's hand, a large amount of dragon chi rushed into it. Whoosh! In an instant, the blazing crimson flame, which had absorbed enough dragon chi, trembled and let out a sword cry. The celestial sword constitution was fully activated. The blazing crimson flame was strengthened again. A surge of sword chi broke out of the sword and appeared above the blazing crimson flame, forming a sword energy. The shape of the sword energy was in the shape of a black dragon. The onlookers were shocked when they saw Lin Yi's transformation. Hiss! The sound of people sucking in cold breaths could be heard. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. Some people who had seen Lin Yi in action were even more stunned. Oh my God, these changes! Why have I never seen them before? Gulp! I can feel the power of the holy dragon from his body. That's a flaming sword, and its sword energy is actually a giant dragon. Lord Lin Yi is so strong, many new students exclaimed. In an instant, they were filled with confidence in Lin Yi. One had to know that Lin Yi had defeated UNMO without so many changes. This time, Lin Yi had broken through 2 realms, and with these changes, he seemed even stronger. It would not be a problem to deal with the 2 brothers, Tai Yu and Tai Yi, who were slightly stronger than UNMO. Therefore, many new students were filled with anticipation. On the other hand, the older students who had seen Lin Yi's strength felt despair. The shock that Lin Yi brought to them was too great. Holy Dragon's power. 2 supreme saint artifacts. After sensing the changes in Lin Yi's aura, the 2 brothers' lips twitched. At this time, they finally understood why Lin Yi could defeat so many saints with a mere 7th tribulation half-true saint cultivation. Whether it was the Holy Dragon's power or the supreme saint artifact, they were both existences that only invincible saints and great sage experts could touch. However, Lin Yi had obtained them in advance. Naturally, he could fight across realms. For a moment, the 2 brothers felt bitter in their hearts. Looking at Lin Yi, they even thought of retreating. Chapter 464. Tai Yu and Tai Yi felt especially bitter in their hearts. In their opinion, someone who could touch a supreme artifact before reaching the saint stage must have a powerful family behind him. At the very least, their family was stronger than the one behind them. The 2 brothers, Tai Yu and Tai Yi were not well liked in the clan. Thus, they did not dare to rashly make a move against Lin Yi. If Lin Yi held a grudge against them in the future, then wouldn't they be finished? However, Tai Yu and Tai Yi quickly reacted. This was Cebu Gakuen, so they didn't need to worry about their identities. With this thought in mind, Tai Yu and the other man gradually calmed down. So what if it's a supreme artifact? We're both at the peak saint stage. I don't believe you can overturn the heavens. With a light shout, Tai Yu and Tai Yi both tilted their bodies slightly and rushed forward at an extremely fast speed. Their sharp wings suddenly turned into blades and slashed towards Lin Yi. Supreme Mystery Shield. Seeing the two sharp wing blades slashing towards him, Lin Yi waved his right hand, and a Supreme Mystery Shield appeared, blocking the wing blades. Clang, clang, clang. In the next moment, the sharp wings directly collided with the Supreme Mystery Shield. The wings and the shield constantly rubbed against each other, emitting crisp sounds and blooming sparks. Berserk power continuously flowed out from the shield like a tide, shaking Lin Ye's arm. In just a moment, Lin Ye's arm was already trembling nonstop. Damn it, why is there another supreme sacred weapon? The corners of Tai Yu and Tai Yi's mouths twitched, and they were incomparably furious. If it wasn't for the Supreme Mystery Shield, it would be very difficult for Lin Yi to block the wing blades. You guys attacked earlier, so it's my turn now. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi held the shield in one hand and raised the blazing crimson flame in the other. The sacred dragon power in his body surged. The power of the annihilation divine dragon transformation made Lin Yi look like a ferocious beast in human form. His body twisted as he fully unleashed his physical strength. Then he gripped the sword in his right hand and swiftly slashed out with blazing flames. One sword light chills 19 provinces. Cold light flashed as the crimson flames, which contained the power of the sacred dragon, swept past Tai Yu and Tai Yi with a dragon-shaped sword aura. Shwa! A clear and melodious sound resounded as the sharp sword chi flashed past. Instantly, blood spurted out from Tai Yu and Tai Yi's waists. The blazing crimson flame was too sharp. Even though they were peak saints, their skin was cut open when they couldn't dodge in time. If it weren't for the fact that they were strong enough, they would probably be sent to meet the king of hell under this sword. Ouch, ouch, ouch. It was also this sword that had directly slashed out the courage of Tai Yu and Tai Yi. In an instant, Tai Yu and Tai Yi were enraged. They no longer held back as saint artifacts appeared. More than 60,000 wind domains erupted and merged together. In the blink of an eye, they turned into countless hurricanes that attacked Lin Yi. You want to compete with domains now? The corners of Lin Ye's mouth curled slightly. He wasn't afraid at all. With a thought, the 5 elemental domains erupted. All 5 domains had reached 99,999 wind domains. At this moment, they merged together and turned into a 5 elemental domain with a radius of 100 miles. The smaller the domain's range, the more concentrated the power. Tai Yu and Tai Yi were both peak saints, and the gap between them and Lin Yi was too great. Therefore, Lin Yi chose to shrink the 5 elemental domain and try his best to defeat Tai Yu and Tai Yi. When the 5 elemental domain appeared, even if it was only 100 miles wide, it still enveloped everyone present. In an instant, everyone was dumbfounded. They had seen the great sage break through the shackles of his domain, and they had also seen unrivaled saints reach the limit of 99,999 wind domains. But this was the first time they saw a 7th tribulation half-true saint cultivate 5 elemental domains to the limit. He even merged them together to form a 5 elemental domain. Lin Yi, is he really a 7th tribulation half-true saint? Why do I feel that this dense holy aura is stronger than Big Brother Yuanmo's pressure? Hiss! Monster! A monster, Everyone present was dumbfounded, and Yuanmo fell silent. Looking at Lin Ye's 5 elemental domain, many thoughts appeared in his mind. Hua hua hua! The appearance of the five-elemental domain immediately cut off all elements. The wind domain that Tai Yu and Tai Yi had just summoned did not even have the time to do anything before it was completely eliminated. In an instant, Tai Yu and Tai Yi's faces turned gloomy and ugly. F*CK, fight it out with him. Gritting their teeth, Tai Yi and Tai Yu gritted their teeth. Since they couldn't beat Lin Yi with their saint artifacts and domain, they decided to use every inch of their skin as weapons. Towards this, Lin Yi was still not worried in the slightest. Wearing the supreme sacred armor, under the support of the divine Dragon 9 transformations, he withdrew the Raging Flame's crimson light and supreme mysterious shield and started to fight with Tai Yu and Tai Yi. Heavenly Emperor Fist. Heaven Exterminating Finger. Lin Yi clenched his fist and flicked his fingers, dispersing Tai Yu and Tai Yi's attacks. Tai Yu and Tai Yi were completely suppressed by Lin Yi, and they were extremely unwilling to accept it. They erupted with all their strength and fought with Lin Yi. Thousand Wind Kill. Wind Tribulation Finger. A violent gust of wind suddenly blew. The biting, cold killing intent mixed with a gust of wind had already enveloped Lin Yi. The wind slapped against the supreme saint armor, and a crisp sound rang out. One sword light chills 19 provinces. A cold light flashed in Lin Yi's eyes. He didn't care about the details, and directly pulled out the blazing crimson flames. Together with his eightfold attack, he slashed apart the two violent winds. Tai Yu and Tai Yi's eyes were bloodshot as they shouted. It was as if they had gone mad as they continuously launched attacks at Lin Yi. Lin Yi wasn't afraid. With the support of the annihilating divine dragon transformation, his battle sense had increased by a lot. It was as if he was instinctively responding to Tai Yu and Tai Yi's attacks. It was as if he was dancing on the edge of a blade, fighting to his heart's content. The battle between the three was particularly exciting, and the spectators were watching with great interest. Every move and style of theirs were not complicated, and their goal was to defeat their opponent. This simple and violent style made the spectators' hearts shiver. Boom, boom, boom. Every time they clashed, Lin Yi and Tai Yu, the two brothers, would send out a powerful shockwave that would strike Lin Yi and the other two brothers. Not long after, the saint armors on the two brothers started to crack. However, they were in the midst of an intense battle, and Tai Yu and Tai Yi didn't notice it at all. Crack! Crack! After more than 300 moves, the frequency of the crisp sound was getting higher and higher. Soon, Lin Yi noticed something strange about the sound. He sensed it and instantly found the cracks on the saint armors of Tai Yu and Tai Yi. Noticing this, Lin Yi was overjoyed. He immediately threw the blazing crimson flames into the air. Seeing Lin Yi throw the blazing crimson flames into the air, Tai Yu and Tai Yu's hearts skipped a beat, and they quickly looked up. However, they didn't notice that after Lin Yi threw the blazing crimson flames, he immediately clenched his fists and launched the 7th level of the Celestial Emperor Fist. Rumble! The 2 levels of the Celestial Emperor Fist were launched at the same time. The surging power was like a huge mountain, and it heavily hammered on the saint armors of Tai Yu and Tai Yi. Crack! A crisp sound suddenly rang out. The next moment, the saint armors of Tai Yu and Tai Yi shattered and flew in all directions. No! Chapter 465. Kacha! Kacha! With a crisp sound, Tai Yu and Tai Yi's saint armor shattered, and they were sent flying in all directions. Tai Yu and Tai Yi were stunned at first. Then their expressions changed drastically as they cried out in pain. Those 2 sets of sacred armors were 1,000 inscriptions sacred armors that they had spent a lot of effort to obtain. Its effect was stronger than ordinary 10,000 inscriptions sacred armors and had accompanied them through many battles. They did not expect that they would shatter in the battle with Lin Yi. One had to admit that Tai Yu and Tai Yi were not weak. Just by looking at their moves, they were not at a disadvantage. However, there was a gap between them and Lin Yi in terms of sacred armors. Kill! Lin Yi waved his right hand, and the crimson flames fell. A spinning sword chi slashed out towards Tai Yu and Tai Yi. Dodge. Feeling the sharp aura, Tai Yu and Tai Yi's expressions changed drastically as they kept dodging. Originally, they had the protection of sacred armors and did not have to worry about being slashed by the sword. However, now that their sacred armors had shattered, they did not dare to use their physical bodies to resist the power of the crimson flames. If they were cut in half, their injuries would be serious. Therefore, after losing their sacred armors, Tai Yu and Tai Yi immediately fell into a disadvantage in the battle with Lin Yi. They were rather passive and could only keep dodging. However, dodging was not a solution. In addition, Lin Yi's strength was far from ordinary. After a while, the sharp crimson flames had left many wounds on Tai Yu and Tai Yi's bodies. If they were not agile enough, they would have been seriously injured by Lin Yi. Seeing this scene, all of the older students were already in despair, sighing in despair. They could see that it was only a matter of time before Tai Yu and Tai Yi were defeated. However, no one noticed that while Tai Yu and Tai Yi were dodging, they had left behind some special marks and footwork beneath their feet. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After chasing Tai Yu and Tai Yi for a while, Lin Yi increased his speed and finally stopped Tai Yu and Tai Yi. His sharp long sword suddenly rested on Tai Yu's neck. Still running. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth curled up slightly as he looked at Tai Yu and Tai Yi with an indifferent expression. You've lost. It's time to hand over your points. I lost. Hearing this, Tai Yu and Tai Yi looked at each other and laughed out loud. All of a sudden, Lin Yi frowned. He suddenly had an ominous premonition. However, the others did not notice that the new students were already jumping and cheering in celebration. UNMO was the only one who smiled. He wanted to see what kind of strength Lin Yi would erupt with when Tai Yu and Tai Yi made their final counterattack. That set of formations was the unique skill of the two brothers, Tai Yu and Tai Yi. They wouldn't utilize it even during the competition, so very few people knew about it. Not good. Suddenly, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He swung his long sword and retreated rapidly. Boom! Almost at the same time Lin Yi retreated, the place where he was standing just a moment ago was suddenly attacked by a gust of wind. Wong wong wong. The gust of wind rotated and even tore space apart. Not far away, Lin Yi's expression became solemn when he saw this scene. An attack that could even tear space apart should not be underestimated when it landed on his body. One had to know that after coming to this space, even Sun Wuyu couldn't tear space apart. This showed the power of this attack. You actually dodged it. Tai Yu and Tai Yi frowned when they saw this scene. They were very depressed. No one, not even an invincible Saint Realm expert, could dodge this attack the first time they encountered it. Lin Yi was a mere 7th Tribulation half-true saint, but he managed to dodge it, shocking the two of them. So what if you dodge it once? Now, taste the terror I'm giving you. Gale rend. Tai Yu and Tai Yi roared. In the next moment, the two brothers spread out their arms, and the runes under their feet exploded. They turned to gusts of wind and rushed towards Lin Yi at lightning speed. Every gust of wind contained a power that even Lin Yi's heart would tremble in fear. Feeling the endless gusts of wind, Lin Yi frowned. Suddenly, the crimson flame appeared, and his breathing quickened. 32 times attack. One sword light chills 19 prefectures. Sword chi traverses 30,000 li. 5 elements domain erupt. Sword. He closed his eyes, and in the next moment, sharp sword chi and endless elements gathered crazily towards Lin Yi. The 5 elements domain emitted a 7-colored light, and mixed with the power of the supreme mystery shield and supreme holy armor, it blocked all the gusts of wind. At the same time, the crimson flame flickered, and the power of the annihilation divine dragon transformation was fully displayed. Lin Yi's figure twisted, and he rushed out like a giant dragon. Wong. Countless sword chi gathered around Lin Yi and formed a line. Soon after, they turned into a giant sword and rushed forward with Lin Yi. Whoosh! The sword chi whistled, and the giant sword was mixed with the power of the sky, sword 12 styles. It poured out and instantly covered all the gusts of wind that were coming towards him. and crush them. One sword light chills in 19 states. Sword chi traverses 30,000 li. The crimson flame danced and slashed out twice. In an instant, the sharp sword chi and the giant sword exploded at the same time. With the support of Lin Ye's divine sense, it pierced towards Tai Yu and Tai Yi. Originally, Lin Yi didn't want to use his divine sense. However, when he realized that Tai Yu and Tai Yi had quickly formed a protective shield, he decided to use his divine sense. Bang! Crack! A crisp sound rang in the air, and the protective shield formed by Tai Yu and Tai Yi shattered like glass. In the next moment, the sharp sword chi swept past and mixed with divine sense. It pierced through Tai Yu and Tai Yi's bodies. Pooh! Tai Yu and Tai Yi's bodies suddenly stiffened. Their entire bodies froze, and their faces were filled with disbelief. They didn't dare to believe that Lin Yi, a mere seventh tribulation half-true saint, could actually injure them. Bang! Fresh blood spurted out, and Tai Yu and Tai Yi's bodies were pierced through. They couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed to the ground. This time, Lin Yi didn't stop. Tai Yu and Tai Yi's injuries were extremely serious, and blood flowed out continuously from their bodies. Defeated. Sigh. Seeing this scene, many senior disciples lost all hope and sighed helplessly. UNMO, on the other hand, was focused on Lin Yi. He had been watching the battle from beginning to end. After watching, UNMO became more and more curious about Lin Yi. Whether it was those supreme saint artifacts, martial skills, or the power of domains, they were all too exquisite. Ha ha ha! This is great. We finally won. Big brother Lin Yi is mighty. Awesome, we've broken the record this time. Chapter 466. Hand over your points. Lin Ye's expression was indifferent as he walked in front of Tai Yu and Tai Yi. At this time, the two brothers' faces were gloomy. They were very reluctant to give up their points, but they had already lost and had no room to resist. As for running away, that was a joke. Gritting their teeth, the two brothers had no choice but to give their points to Lin Yi. Shangguan Yinshi, Muyi, you guys lead the others to divide the points. After obtaining the two brothers' points, Lin Ye's points had once again reached 1 million, and he returned to the first place on the Spear Hunter list. Therefore, Lin Yi did not take the points of the other seniors, but let the freshmen divide them equally. Many of the freshmen had their points snatched away. Although the points were divided equally, they could not get much, but they could stop their losses, which made them grateful. In just a moment, many of the freshmen had divided the points, and the seniors were dejected like frosted eggplants. Before the freshmen could celebrate, a beam of light suddenly fell from the sky. Several huge figures landed. It was the Space Wyvern. On the Space Wyvern, there were many elders standing. The hunting war is over. An elder's figure flashed and appeared in the sky. It was Theta Scarabii. She smiled at the freshmen and said softly, "Congratulations to all of you for doing a great job. As a reward, all the freshmen who participated in today's war will be rewarded with an additional 1,000 points. 1,000 points? Oh my God. Ha ha ha. Thank you, Elder. Elder Theta Scarabii is mighty. Brother Lin Yi is mighty. Brother Shangguan is mighty." In an instant, all the freshmen were excited and kept shouting the names of Lin Yi and Shangguan Yunqi. Especially Lin Yi. He had defeated the strongest among the seniors twice with a valiant attitude and led them to victory. Seeing this scene, many of the elders could not help but smile. The more talented and energetic the freshmen were, the happier they would be. Only with the injection of new blood could Cebu Gakuen become stronger. In addition, congratulations to the top 1,000 students of the Spirit Hunting Leaderboard. You will be rewarded with additional points. After saying this, Theta Scarabii turned her gaze to Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others. They clearly knew everything that had happened in the past 15 days. Naturally, they remembered Lin Yi, Shangguan Yunqi, and the others very well. This was especially true for Lin Yi. His divine will had reached the saint realm, and his supreme sacred artifact was overflowing with oil. This made the other elders rather envious. Most of them only had a 10,000 inscriptions sacred artifact. A supreme sacred artifact was quite rare. Only the true upper echelons would possess a supreme sacred artifact. Everyone laughed heartily. The older students, including the two brothers Tai Yu and Tai Yi, all sighed. As soon as those elders had appeared, one of them had already acted and healed their injuries. However, after restoring their strength, that elder was extremely cold and detached toward them. There was not the slightest trace of a smile on his face. That elder was an instructor of the inner yard. Seeing UNMO, Tai Yu, and Tai Yi lose so miserably, he was furious and humiliated. Soon, after the older students' injuries were more or less healed, the elder ignored Theta Scarabei and left with the older students. Before leaving, UNMO took a deep look at Lin Yi. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit. For some reason, UNMO treated Lin Yi as a great enemy the moment he saw Lin Yi. After celebrating for a while, Theta Scarabei waved her hand and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, today's hunting battle is over." Quickly board the spatial wyvern. "Wait a moment, Elder." Suddenly, Shangwan Yunshi asked doubtfully, "There are only 6,000 people here. What about the other freshmen?" "Ha ha, you don't have to worry about that." Theta Scarabei smiled and said, "The other freshmen will naturally be led by the elders. Next, you should think about how to get familiar with Cebu Gakuen." At this point, Theta Scarabei revealed a strange smile. She glanced at Lin Yi, Shangwan Yunshi, and Qing Yue and murmured, "When the results of this hunting battle are spread, the older students will have a different attitude towards you. You should also think about how to survive in Cebu Gakuen. Cebu Gakuen welcomes you all." That's not right." Shangwan Yunshi, Muyi, and the others looked at each other and asked, "Elder, didn't you say that the top 1,000 of the Spirit Hunter list could enter the inner yard? Why do we have to go to the outer yard now?" There was a huge gap between the inner yard and the outer yard. Shangwan Yunshi and the others were extremely talented and were naturally proud. They were unwilling to waste time in the outer yard. Not only them, but all the other freshmen looked at Theta Scarabei in puzzlement. For them, the inner yard was the fastest place to break through and raise their cultivation level. "Haha, we have our own plans for this." Theta Scarabei grinned and said, "This year's outer yard will give you a big surprise." Oh, hearing this, Lin Yi and the others were surprised. In their eyes, Theta Scarabei was already a peerless expert. If even he said it was a big surprise, they would naturally be curious. "All right, come on up." Theta Scarabei nodded slightly and motioned for everyone to come on up. Without any other questions, the freshmen no longer hesitated and boarded the space dragon. After a while, the space dragon suddenly soared into the sky and rushed towards Cebu Gakuen. Lin Yi, Sun Wuyu, and Silent Soul sat together. Beside them were Yin Shihao, Shunling Xiao, and Qing Yu. At this time, Qing Yu recalled her white tiger and sat quietly at the side, attracting everyone's attention. Theta Scarabei walked slowly to Lin Ye's side and looked at Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul. He suddenly smiled and said, "Your performance is not bad, but if you want to bring the two of them, your points will be depleted very quickly. For you, millions or even tens of millions of points may not be enough." Hearing this, Lin Yi could not help but be curious. After the hunting war, Lin Yi had some understanding of the points depletion. Although the sage grade items cost a lot of points, he did not need them too much. As for the other items, they did not consume too much points. Otherwise, the seniors would not have so few points. Therefore, Lin Yi did not care too much about the points and gave a lot to Yin Shihao and Shunling Xiao. Looking up, he saw Theta Scarabei's serious expression and did not seem to be joking. Lin Yi could not help but frown. "Heh, when you arrive, you will know the reason. Oh right, when you have stabilized, remember to make a trip to the sacred depository. There may be something you need there." Chapter 467. Hidden Saint Pavilion, something that I need? By the time Lin Yi came to his senses, Theta Scarabii had already left. What's going on? Murmuring to himself, Lin Yi engraved the words Saint Depository Pavilion in his mind. However, he did not know where exactly the Saint Depository Pavilion was. Lin Yi, you're in luck. Suddenly, Shangguan Yunqi stood up and approached Lin Yi. He whispered, Elder Theta Scarabii is said to be a very powerful elder in the inner sanctum. He actually took the initiative to invite you to the Hidden Saint Pavilion. There must be some benefits. Shangguan Yunqi's family was a very powerful, first-rank family. He knew a lot about Sibu Gakuin. Frowning, Lin Yi turned to look at Shangguan Yunqi and asked, Brother Shangguan, you seem to know a lot about Sibu Gakuin. Then what is the Hidden Saint Pavilion? Hearing this, Shangguan Yunqi, Mu Yi, and Qingwei were all stunned. They stood there in a daze, their faces filled with disbelief as they muttered, It can't be, right? Brother Lin, you don't know what the Hidden Saint Pavilion is? Shunling Xiao and Yin Shihao curled their lips. After a few days of getting along, Yin Shihao already knew that Lin Yi came from another area and did not have any forces behind him. However, after witnessing Lin Ye's means and seeing so many supreme sacred artifacts, Shangguan Yunqi, Qing and the rest had already assumed that Lin Yi was a young master from a powerful family. Therefore, when they realized that Lin Yi did not know about the Hidden Saint Pavilion, they were all stunned. That's right. Lin Yi nodded and asked, Brother Shangguan, can you explain it to me? Huff! Shangguan Yunqi took a deep breath and said, Since you don't know, I'll explain the composition of Sibu Gakuin for you. At this point, Shangguan Yunqi paused. Shunling Xiao, Yin Shihao, and the others gathered around. Although the few of them were also disciples of first-rank clans, they weren't very powerful, so they didn't know much. Seeing that Shangguan Yunqi was about to explain the composition of Sibu Gakuin, they all listened attentively. As we all know, Sibu Gakuin is divided into an inner courtyard and an outer courtyard. Actually, other than having a few more special functions and having powerful students, the facilities in the inner courtyard are more or less the same as the outer courtyard. Sibu Gakuin only has 6 basic facilities. They are the Saint Depository Pavilion, the Heart Refining Abyss, the Heavenly Thunder Realm, the Fire Cloud Platform, the Elixir Pavilion, and the Blood Refinery Field. In the Sacred Depository Pavilion, points can be used to exchange for cultivation methods, martial skills, sacred weapons, and elixirs. The Heart Refining Abyss is a special place. After entering the Abyss, there will be a special power that will refine one's soul and spirit. This is where we can increase our strength. Normally, only those who cultivate divine will go to the Heart Refining Abyss. As for the Heavenly Thunder Realm, it is where we can increase our strength. In the Heavenly Thunder Realm, there are countless thunderbolts that can refine our physical bodies. The Fire Cloud Platform is organized by the students and the elders. All of them have profound attainments in smithing. They can use their points to exchange for sacred weapons or repair their own sacred weapons. The Elixir Pavilion is the same as the Fire Cloud Platform. However, one sells sacred weapons while the other sells elixirs. Of course, the items sold by the two organizations cannot be compared to the Saint Depository Pavilion. They can only be exchanged for ordinary items, and the price is slightly cheaper than the Saint Depository Pavilion. After listening to the explanation, Lin Yi and the others were enlightened. After such a long period of development, Sibu Gakuin had developed into a complete process. Although these few facilities were few, they contained everything they needed. All right, what is the Blood Refinery Field? Lin Yi asked again. The Blood Refinery Field is the most magical place. It is also the place where you can earn points the fastest. Outside of the academy, students are not allowed to fight. If you have any grudges, you can settle them at the Blood Refinery Field. Of course, every time you go to the Blood Refinery Field, it is equivalent to a bet. You have to bet your points. Hearing this, Lin Yi and the others looked serious. Dao Feiyong licked his lips, his eyes filled with desire. Then how do you get your points? Lin Yi asked again, Just now, Elder Theta Scarbii told me that points will be consumed very quickly. What's that about? That's because of the two people you brought. Shangguan Yunshi glanced at Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul and continued, in Cebu Gakuen, all the students live together. If you want to move to a special residence, you need to exchange for points. 10,000 points for a month, but if you don't rent a residence, the price is very high, at least 100,000 points. With Silent Soul's identity, it is impossible for her to live with others. Hearing this, Lin Yi immediately sucked in a breath of cold air, his face solemn. He finally understood why the elders advised him to stay when they saw him bring two people to the academy. Just the residence alone would cost a few 100,000 points every month. Adding the other expenses, it would cost at least 500,000 to 600,000 points a month. Fortunately, he had snatched enough points in this hunting war. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to find a place to stay with just a few thousand or tens of thousands of points. Because of this, very few people bring guards or women into Cebu Gakuen. Shangguan Yunshi coughed lightly. A house is just one of the many costs. The food and resources required for cultivation are 10 times or even 100 times the points required. For example, we only need 100 points to cultivate in the heart refining abyss, but Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu need 1,000 or even 10,000 points. The most unreasonable thing is that they can't earn points. No matter what they do, they can't earn points, and it can't be counted on you. You can only think of ways to earn points. Sun Wuyu's face changed and suddenly said, Captain, why don't I go out alone? In Cebu Gakuen, points are hard to earn, and we use them so quickly. We will be a burden to you. Gongzi, I can leave too. Silent Soul also said, we are a burden here. Nonsense. Hearing this, Lin Ye's face darkened and said in a low voice, you can't leave. Isn't it just a few points? You don't believe me? I got a few million points in one hunting war. When we get to Cebu Gakuen, will I still have to worry about points? All right, Brother Shangguan, how many ways to earn points are there in the academy? Shangguan Yunshi smiled and said, I believe in Brother Lin. Compared to the points, the most troublesome part of bringing them along is the people. Chapter 468. Whether it's the Saint Depository Pavilion, the Heavenly Thunder Realm, the Fire Cloud Arena, or the Elixir Pavilion, you can get points from all of them. Of course, these points don't come from much. The Blood Refining Ground is the main source of the points. In the Blood Refining Ground, other than gambling, you can also compete. Everyone has a ranking in the Blood Refining Ground. The more people you defeat, the stronger your strength will be, and the higher your ranking will be. As you break through your ranking, you'll be rewarded with points. Every month, you'll be rewarded with points according to your ranking. It seems like I have to go to the Blood Refining Ground. Nodding slightly, Lin Yi committed the Blood Refining Ground to memory. For points for survival, he had to go to the Blood Refining Ground and turn it upside down. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to feed Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul. Brother Lin, we can go to the Blood Refining Ground together. Dao Feiyong grinned. Okay, let's go together. With a smile, Lin Yi responded and asked, Brother Shangguan, are there only so many places in the entire Cebu Gakuen? Cebu Gakuen is big, but there are many places that students like us can't enter. For example, forbidden areas and some special areas. Shangguan Yunshi said in a deep voice, only elders, palace masters, and students like Fairy Xuanji can enter the core areas. Speaking of Fairy Xuanji, Shangguan Yunshi's expression changed slightly and his eyes flickered. Boom! Roar! All of a sudden, the space dragon roared. Everyone felt their bodies shake. They tore open the space and appeared above a dense forest. When they lowered their heads to take a look, many of the new students exclaimed in surprise. Following their gazes, they saw countless luxurious rooms and waterside pavilions. The environment was quite beautiful. Looking around, there were several tall buildings. A tall building hung with the symbol of an elixir. There was a high platform, surrounded by blazing flames. It was a sea of fiery red. A pavilion towered into the clouds. It was a spectacular sight, like a pillar that supported the sky. In several other directions, there were hidden environments. Even the space there was distorted. The facilities I'm talking about are the most eye-catching ones. Shangguan Yunshi whispered to Lin Yi and the others. Of course, these aren't the only facilities here. There's also the Technique Pavilion, the Medicine Hall, and so on. However, the things inside aren't as good as I said. As soon as he finished speaking, the spatial wyvern flapped its wings again and brought everyone to a rather luxurious room. This area was surprisingly specially built by the Academy for the new students. All right, this will be your residence from now on. As for how you're going to stay, that's up to you. Theta Scarabii pointed to the courtyard below and said, "Let's rest for the night. Tomorrow, everyone will gather at the Spirit Gathering Array. I'll introduce you to the outer courtyard. After tomorrow, you are free to move around." After saying that, Theta Scarabii waved her hand. The 6,000 people on the spatial wyvern felt a special power surge up and suddenly captured them. Before they had time to be surprised, everyone flew up into the air and landed on the ground. The spatial wyvern in the air also disappeared without a trace. Hiss, what powerful strength! Noticing this, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, and panic immediately filled their hearts. Although they knew that Theta Scarabii was very powerful, they did not expect Theta Scarabii to be so powerful. With a wave of her hand, she could control tens of thousands of people, including many saints. This strength has definitely surpassed the great sage. Lin Ye's eyes shone. This was the first time he was shocked. Even the Demon Emperor and the Blood Emperor that he had met before were not as strong as Theta Scarabii. Elder Theta Scarabii. At this time, Shangguan Yunshi suddenly said, "Elder, I'm willing to use my points to rent and buy a residence." "Me too." Following Shangguan Yunshi's voice, Qing Yu, Dao Feiyong, Mui, and the others all spoke up. Some of them already knew, while some of them only found out from others after they had enough points. Of course, some of them did not have enough points and could not afford it. So they would work together to rent and buy a residence. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't be stingy and shouted out as well. Soon, more than 1,000 people were pulled aside by Theta Scarabii. The remaining 3,000 people gradually landed in the courtyard and began to tidy up their rooms. The environment here was not bad. Everyone still had their own room, but they lived in the same courtyard. However, most of the geniuses who were able to join Cebu Gakuen were disciples of big families, so they could not bear the hardships. After the tidying up, Theta Scarabii's side flashed and dragged Lin Yi and more than 1,000 people to another area. After a while, Lin Yi and the others arrived in front of a large hall. This large hall was quite deserted, and there was almost no one in sight. In the middle of the hall, an old man with a white beard was lying on a chair, sleeping leisurely. Seeing this scene, many of the new students were stunned for a moment, and then they carefully sized up the old man. In their senses, the old man's strength was very vague, making it impossible to determine. However, he did not give off a sense of oppression, as if he was only a sage to be. After entering the hall, Theta Scarabii bowed slightly to the old man and said softly, "This year's new students are here." "Oh." Hearing Theta Scarabii's words, the old man opened his eyes and glanced at Lin Yi and the others. He yawned and said, "Phew, this year's assessment is over quickly. Okay, go and pick your rooms." The rooms in the first row cost 200,000 yuan, the second row costs 100,000 yuan, the third row costs 50,000 yuan, the fourth row costs 10,000 yuan, and the fifth row costs 1,000 yuan. After you hand in your points and get your keys, activate them. There will be a guide that will take you to your rooms. After saying this, the old man waved his hand, ignoring Theta Scarabii and the others, and closed his eyes again. "Yes." Theta Scarabii bowed slightly, then turned to Lin Yi and the others and shouted, "Hurry up and choose your rooms. After you hand in your points, you will be able to live in them." Seeing this, Lin Yi narrowed his eyes and began to doubt the old man's identity. As for the rest, they quickly sized up the room. However, on the wall, there were only the names of the rooms and their keys. There was no introduction at all. For a moment, everyone was stunned. Without an introduction, how could they choose their rooms? Don't think too much. As long as the price is the same, all the rooms will be the same. As if sensing everyone's doubts, Theta Scarabii coughed. Everyone laughed bitterly and no longer hesitated. They directly handed over the points, picked up the keys of the price they wanted, and left the hall. Shangguan Yunqi, Qin Yu, Dao Feiyong, and the others bowed slightly to the old man, handed in their points, and took the rooms in the first row. They were all disciples of large factions and naturally understood the benefits of these rooms. Chapter 469. After taking the key, Shangguan Yunqi noticed that Lin Yi hadn't chosen a house yet. He quickly signaled Lin Yi with his eyes. Lin Yi realized what Shangguan Yunqi was trying to do. He walked to the wall, swiped 600,000 points, and took the first row of keys. After taking the keys, Lin Yi glanced at Theta Scarabii, turned around, and left. There were only 3 keys left on the first row. After leaving the hall, Shangguan Yunqi let out a sigh of relief and said, "Brother Lin, thank goodness you took it. Every year, there are only 10 high-class houses. If you didn't get it, you would have suffered a great loss." Oh, hearing this, Lin Yi was very curious. He asked, "What is the use of this highest grade house?" "What's the use?" Shangguan Yunqi grinned. 200,000 points per month. I'm sure you'll be shocked by its use. This is a benefit given to us by the Academy. Let's not talk about anything else. The high-class house comes with a sacred level spiritual gathering formation. Gasp! Hearing this, Lin Yi and the surrounding people who did not know about this immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The spiritual gathering formation could gather all the spiritual chi and sacred force between heaven and earth and purify them into the purest energy for people to absorb. With the spiritual gathering formation, everyone's cultivation efficiency would increase by several times. Moreover, the spiritual gathering formation not only increased one's cultivation efficiency, but it also had many other effects. That's not all. Shangguan Yunqi continued. The high-class house also contains the power of space. After activating it with points, the people who live in it can comprehend the power of space. Also, it has a very strong defensive power. Even the great sage would find it difficult to break through the defense of the high-class house. Although we are in Cebu Gakuen, there are always special circumstances. With that level of defensive power, it will be better. No wonder it costs so many points. Lin Yi nodded slightly. After hearing these effects, he was a little surprised. It was evident that Cebu Gakuen had put in a lot of effort to build such a house. Activate the key with your heart's blood, and you'll be guided. Shangguan Yunqi smiled and said, "Brother Lin, this hunting war is all thanks to you. You are very strong. I will also work hard. See you tomorrow." With that, Shangguan Yunqi lightly tapped his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood, which splashed onto the key. Buzz! In the next moment, the key emitted a fluorescent light and turned into a butterfly that flew forward. Shangguan Yin got up and quickly followed after him. Seeing this, the rest of the people followed suit and also spat out their blood to summon the little spirit inside the key. However, the sprites that everyone summoned flew in different directions, which surprised Lin Yi. Could it be that their rooms were scattered in different areas of the outer court? Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of blood and dripped it onto the key. Buzz! A butterfly appeared and floated towards the south. Lin Yi, Silent Soul, and Sun Wuyu quickly followed. Along the way, Lin Yi and the other two passed by many buildings and saw many seniors. Almost everyone had the strength of a middle-stage saint, and there were even more people in the later stage of the saint realm. However, they did not see a single peak saint. Noticing this, Lin Yi understood that all those who had the strength of a peak saint had entered the inner court. When the seniors saw the little butterfly in front of Lin Yi, they were all shocked. Some of them even froze on the spot. By the time they reacted, Lin Yi and the other two had already disappeared from their sight. Soon, two luxurious courtyards appeared in front of Lin Yi and the other two, which shocked them. These two courtyards are our rooms. Sun Wuyu blinked and glanced at the two courtyards. He suddenly sighed. It seems that the 200,000 points were well spent. Following his line of sight, they saw that the courtyards were surrounded by a silver-white light shield array formation. In the courtyards, there were cultivation items and many spirit fruit trees. There was even fine wine on the table. Even though they had not entered the courtyard, they could already smell the fragrance of the wine. Swoosh! Just as Lin Yi and Sun Wuyu were shocked, another ray of light flashed and quickly disappeared into the courtyard on the left. "Who's there?" With a cry of surprise, Lin Yi and the other two focused and looked over, only to discover that the figure was Qin Yu. As if hearing Lin Yi and the other two's voices, Qin Yu turned around and looked at Lin Yi and the other two in confusion. Cough, cough. In an instant, Lin Yi and the other two came to their senses and quickly coughed. Obviously, that courtyard was Qin Yu's and not theirs. Sun Wuyu could not help but blush. This was too awkward. Nothing. I just feel that it's too much of a coincidence. Lin Yi smiled awkwardly. I didn't expect that we'd actually become neighbors. Nodding slightly, Qin Yu turned around and rushed into the room in a flash. We're going back just like that? The corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. He did not stay any longer and rushed into the courtyard with the key. As soon as they entered the courtyard, Lin Yi and the other two immediately felt that the surrounding spiritual energy was more than 10 times denser. Their breathing was much more refreshing. In an instant, the aura in Lin Ye's body surged and could no longer be suppressed. It was like an erupting volcano, rising with a loud bang. Hurry up and back off. With a soft shout, Lin Yi immediately sat down cross-legged and controlled his strength to circulate according to the cultivation method. Boom, boom, boom. Thunderous sounds rang continuously. The surging power was like a raging sea, constantly gathering around Lin Yi. Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul did not dare to disturb Lin Yi. They quickly retreated and only looked at Lin Yi silently. Lin Ye's divine will had already reached the sage realm. They were not worried about him breaking through. Boom, boom, boom. As time passed, Lin Ye's aura became more stable, but the gradually rising aura did not stop. At the same time, in another courtyard, Qin Yu, who was tidying up the room, suddenly turned around and looked in Lin Ye's direction. Her eyes were filled with a strange look. Strange? Why do I feel that his aura is so familiar? It seems like he's breaking through. Why do I feel that his sage aura is so familiar? Could it be that he's also a member of my clan? After hesitating for a moment, Qin Yu raised her right hand. A special divine will power appeared and turned into a ball of light. In that ball of light, there were dozens of figures of demonic beasts. Roar! Chapter 470. Time passed slowly. In the courtyard, the turbulent atmosphere quickly calmed down. Lin Yi had broken through to the 8th tribulation, half-true, saint realm. After the breakthrough, Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect that he, who had been suppressing his cultivation, would suddenly erupt after coming to the courtyard. Forget it. If I can't suppress it, then so be it. It's better to break through to the saint realm as soon as possible. Rubbing his nose, Lin Yi didn't pay too much attention to it. His divine will had already reached the saint realm, and his foundation was strong enough to break through to the saint realm. However, with the changes in the area, Lin Ye's opponents had reached the saint realm, and even the peak of the saint realm. Being able to break through to the saint realm as soon as possible was also beneficial to Lin Yi. At least, he wouldn't have to go all out and use all his trump cards every time. It was a pity that there was no news of the second scroll of the 3,000 divine will until now. Otherwise, as long as he could improve his divine will, even if Lin Yi didn't break through, he could easily defeat a Saint Realm expert. After the breakthrough, Lin Yi brought Sun Wuyu and Silent Soul into the room. The room was very big, and there were several rooms. Each room had a giant spiritual array. In the outer hall, there was a picture of a key. There's actually a map here. What made Lin Yi and the others even more surprised was a map. It had to be said that the Cebu Gakuin cared a lot about the new students. There was a red dot on the map, marking their area. In other places, all the buildings were clearly marked. Even the effects of the medicine were listed. Looking around, Lin Yi suddenly realized that the area they were in was very close to the Saint Depository Pavilion. Saint Depository Pavilion. Elder Theta Scarabii wants me to go there. Why don't we go now? With a thought, Lin Yi immediately decided, Sun Wuyu, Silent Soul, you two tidy up the room here. I'll go to the Saint Depository Pavilion. Captain, you go leave this to us. Sun Wuyu immediately agreed. After giving out his instructions, Lin Yi turned around and left the courtyard. Following the map, he rushed towards the Saint Depository Pavilion. The Sacred Depository Pavilion could be said to be the most majestic building in the entire outer courtyard of Cebu Gakuin. A pavilion rose from the ground and soared into the sky. Vast Saint might spread out. It was not strong, nor was it rich, but it lasted for a long time. All the students who passed by the Sacred Depository Pavilion, no matter how strong they were, would reveal a pious expression. Sensing this, Lin Yi was rather curious as he stepped into the Saint Depository Pavilion. The moment he entered the Saint Depository Pavilion, Lin Yi felt as if he had traveled through time and space, and his body suddenly swayed. By the time he woke up, he was already leaning against the side of the door. Inside the Saint Depository Pavilion, there was no counter or anything like that. There were also no elders or other staff members guarding the place. In front of each bookshelf, there was a light screen. Slowly approaching a bookshelf, Lin Yi lowered his head to take a look. He was surprised to find that all the books on the shelf were saint-level cultivation techniques. With a thought, a cultivation technique book flashed and floated in front of Lin Yi. It was as if a breeze had brushed past, and the pages were flipped. After a few glances, the cultivation technique book fell back down, flashing with light. On the light screen, a number of 300,000 appeared. I can choose my own cultivation technique book. I can take it away after handing in the points. Frowning slightly, Lin Yi was very surprised to see this pattern. In the past, all the places where people exchanged treasures in the sect would be guarded by many experts. He did not expect that in Cebu Gakuin, there was not a single person guarding it. This was really too surprising. Taking a few steps forward, Lin Yi looked around and realized that there were disciples passing by from time to time. Just like him, these disciples scanned the items on the shelves and began to exchange for treasures. Throughout the entire process, no one made sound. It was rather quiet. Touching his nose, Lin Yi decided to walk around and familiarize himself with Cebu Gakuin. The first floor was divided into two areas, cultivation techniques and martial techniques. They were all low-grade saint-level cultivation techniques of all kinds, including body-tempering techniques, divine abilities, and domains. He had to admit that Cebu Gakuin was very powerful. The space on the first floor was huge, and there were hundreds of thousands of cultivation techniques. It was shocking. After walking around for a long time, Lin Yi finally found the way upstairs. The second floor was also low-grade saint level, but it was filled with elixirs, saint artifacts, formations, and the like. Lin Yi went all the way to the 11th floor. Just as he was about to step in, he was stopped by a voice. Cough, cough. A light cough sounded, causing Lin Yi's footsteps to stop abruptly. His right foot was in the air. Rolling his eyes, Lin Yi put down his right foot and stepped into the space. Cough, cough. A hoarse voice suddenly sounded. Young man, don't you know that you can't step into the 11th floor without permission? Hearing this, Lin Yi could not help but be shocked. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the voice. He was instantly shocked. He saw a man with a white cloth wrapped around his eyes walk out from the neatly arranged bookshelves. The moment he saw that person, Lin Yi's heart twitched violently. In an instant, Lin Yi was extremely shocked and stared at that person. That person's breath was very weak, like a candle in the wind, as if it would be extinguished at any time. His eyes were wrapped with a white cloth, and his head was slightly tilted. He seemed to be blind and could not see at all. However, Lin Yi could feel a special force gathering around that man's head. This person is definitely a powerhouse. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He did not dare to underestimate him because of his weak breath. He quickly said, "Senior, I've just arrived at the academy today and do not know the rules here. Sorry to disturb you." Freshman, cough cough. After coughing, the man waved his hand and said indifferently, "Since it was unintentional, I won't punish you. Hurry up and leave." "Senior, before I leave, may I ask that Elder Theta Scarabii once asked me to come to the sacred depository and said that there would be something I need here. I wonder if you know Elder Theta Scarabii?" Lin Yi's eyes turned, and he still chose to reveal Theta Scarabii. For some reason, the moment he stepped onto the 11th floor, Lin Yi had a special premonition that there was an opportunity for him here. Therefore, Lin Yi did not go down directly. Even if that man did not know Theta Scarabii, he would at most chase him down, and there would be no loss. "Dao." Hearing Lin Yi's words, the man was slightly surprised and murmured, "Dao? Theta Scarabii?" Hearing the murmur, Lin Yi could not help but sigh in disappointment. Obviously, that man did not know Theta Scarabii. "Senior, I've offended you earlier." Bowing slightly, Lin Yi was just about to leave when the aura of the entire space suddenly exploded into a violent psychic storm. Boom, boom, boom. Chapter 471. Boom, boom, boom. The divine telekinesis was so strong that it instantly swept through the entire 11th floor. Even though Lin Yi was a divine telekinesis saint, he was still pushed back a few steps by that powerful divine telekinesis attack. He felt an unbearable pain in his head, as if countless ants were chewing on his brain. This made Lin Yi extremely shocked. The blind man in front of him was definitely a pinnacle expert. Just the changes in his emotions could cause him pain. This level of strength was not at all inferior to Theta Scarabii. At this moment, Lin Yi suddenly understood why Theta Scarabii wanted him to find this blind man. Obviously, Theta Scarabii knew that he was a divine telekinesis saint. "It's been 300 years. Phew, I've finally met you," the blind man murmured, his hands trembling. Soon, his emotions gradually stabilized, and the divine telekinesis that filled the entire 11th floor dissipated. Lin Yi looked at the blind man in confusion and did not say anything. After a long time, the blind man completely calmed down and said softly, "Did Theta Scarabii tell you anything else?" "No." Lin Yi shook his head and said, "Elder Theta Scarabii only told me that the sacred depository has something I need." The blind man nodded slightly. "Then, does anyone else know that you're a divine telekinesis saint, and that your cultivation technique is the 3000? Heavenly Tao, MM." His pupils suddenly contracted. Lin Yi's figure retreated quickly and pulled away from the blind man in an instant. His eyes were piercingly cold as he stared at the blind man. The 3000 Heavenly Tao was the most important cultivation technique for him to cultivate his divine telekinesis, and no one knew about it. This time, the blind man's sudden words gave Lin Yi a fright. Even Lin Yi's heart was filled with killing intent. If the blind man was weak, Lin Yi would have attacked him directly. "Hey, it's fine. You don't have to worry." Sensing the change in Lin Yi's aura, the blind man smiled and said, "I just happen to know about the 3000 Heavenly Taos, as well as the whereabouts of the second scroll of the 3000 Heavenly Taos." "What?" Lin Yi was extremely astounded when he heard this, and he cried out involuntarily. "You actually know the whereabouts of the third scroll of the 3000 Heaven Tao. Of the 3000 Heavenly Taos, the first scroll could only be cultivated up to the Saint Realm. If one couldn't find a second scroll, they wouldn't be able to cultivate it. Hence, Lin Yi had always been searching for the middle volume of the 3000 Heavenly Taos." "Not bad." The blind man sighed and said, "You don't have to be nervous. If possible, we can sit down and have a good talk." With that, the blind man turned around and walked to the side. With a light wave of his right hand, a set of tables and chairs materialized in the air. Sitting at the table, the blind man pointed at the table opposite him with a very natural expression, his eyes darting around. Lin Yi pondered for a moment, but he still decided to walk over. After all, this was Cebu Gakuin. Since this old man knew Theta Scarabei, he was definitely related to Cebu Gakuin and would definitely not harm him. Besides, he had many life-saving methods. Even if the blind man wanted to kill him, he was confident that he could leave this place. After sitting down, the blind man applauded and smiled. "Not bad. You're indeed very bold. Also, let me introduce myself. My name is Chun Daoxian. 500 years ago, just like you, I entered Cebu Gakuin. 500 years ago." The corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. This was truly an old monster. No wonder he was so strong. On second thought, Theta Scarabei knew this old monster, so he was probably someone from that era. "Back then, my martial arts talent was extremely weak, but I relied on the power of divine telekinesis to make a name for myself in Cebu Gakuin step by step." At this point, Qin Daoxian paused for a moment, then smiled and said, "Little guy, it's been a long time since I talked to someone. I'm starting to miss the past. If you find it annoying, you can just tell me." "It's fine." Lin Yi smiled and said, "This junior is willing to listen to senior talk about the past. You're a pretty good little guy." Hearing this, Chen Daoxuan's pale face revealed a brilliant smile. "Very good. Then this old man will say more things that I shouldn't say. Back then, my martial arts talent was too weak. I could only rely on divine telekinesis to become a saint. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to obtain many divine telekinesis techniques. I improved rapidly and quickly made a name for myself in Cebu Gakuin. After that, my reputation soared, and I represented Cebu Gakuin to travel the world. The turning point of the matter also appeared during that trip. By chance, the disciples of the other three major forces and I entered an ancient ruin together. In that ruin, there was information about the middle volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven." Hearing this, Lin Ye's expression turned serious, and he immediately concentrated on listening. The middle volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven was something that he had to obtain. Not only that, there were many fragments of the first volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven. At that time, many of us had obtained it, but we didn't say it out loud. Everyone thought that they had obtained the first volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven. Therefore, although we failed at the last stage, we gave up the exploration of the ruin without any reluctance. We were prepared to wait until we comprehended the first volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven before exploring it again. After that, the group of us each found a secret place and began to cultivate the 3,000 Ways of Heaven. When we abolished our previous techniques and cultivated the 3,000 Ways of Heaven, we realized that it was a remnant volume. It was impossible to cultivate to the saint level. At that time, all of us panicked and hurriedly returned. However, we discovered that everyone's strength had declined greatly. It was also at that time that we realized that the 3,000 Ways of Heaven we obtained were all remnant volumes, and we were unable to cultivate it at all. When he spoke up to here, Chun Daoxian couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Originally, all of us were at the Great Sage Realm, and we were unable to enter deep into the ruin and obtain the middle volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven. Not to mention that our cultivation had declined severely. At that time, we weren't even able to find a remnant volume of the first volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven before we suffered heavy injuries and could only retreat. It's very difficult to imagine. There were hundreds of us, hundreds of Great Sage Realm experts, and there was no lack of Great Sage Realm experts. Yet half of us were actually affected. After we returned, we bitterly cultivated the first volume of the 3,000 Ways of Heaven with the intention of recovering our strength before exploring the ruin again. Unexpectedly, The suppression of the 3,000 ways of heaven on us was too great. That was only a remnant volume. Not to mention becoming a saint. We were unable to cultivate to the half-saint level. After returning to Cebu Gakuen, I concentrated on cultivating for 100 years, yet I was unable to break through to the half-saint level. In the end, I crippled my own eyes and abolished all my strength, leaving only the power of divine sense. When he spoke up to hear, Shan Daoxian sighed and said, "In this way, I broke free from the suppression of the remnant volume and returned to the saint level. Moreover, I rapidly recover my cultivation. However, with only the power of divine sense, my physical body was truly too weak. Later on, the stronger my divine sense became, the more serious the collapse of my physical body became. When I reached the sky saint level, my physical body was unable to endure any longer. I could only hide here and suppress my strength to maintain my physical body. Brother, can you do me a favor? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.